Hello everybody. Hey Piranha, hey Alome, hey Ludo. Welcome in, welcome in. Today is a special day. Today we are streaming on a Monday. Today we are going over spoilers. So, if you do not want to be spoiled of future projects, if you don't want to be seeing the behind the scenes of things, this is not the stream for you. But if you, I don't know, like being spoiled or want to see what's going on in the background, then you're exactly where you want to be. How are y'all doing today? Hopefully well. I mean, it seems like I wouldn't say normal. The usual kind of Excel sheet background, but what we're going to be going over today is just kind of let y'all kind of look behind the curtain a bit. What I have planned, what the next steps are. I think probably one of the first things that we might try to do today is making sure that our structure is built up appropriately, you know? But before we get super into it, it would not be one of my streams without yapping first. So, how are y'all doing? Hopefully well. I was gonna say, it's only been about a day since the last time I've seen y'all. So, but hopefully in the last day or so, it's been good for you. It's been a good day. I had a mini panic attack today because I usually have a phone alarm for days that I stream to make sure that I'm up and at 'em, because by the time I stream, there's a solid chance that I will sleep through it otherwise. And I forgot to add Monday on that list, so I woke up with a zero alarm panic. You know when you sleep a little too comfortably and you're like, I feel really well rested, and I'm like, wait a minute. Why do I feel rested? Good. But I'm glad you're doing well. Oh, let's get this. We're not here to respect you. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I'm doing all right. I'm excited. I'm a little tired. Obviously, not obviously. I'm a little tired. But even if this is a shorter stream, I still really wanted to have this stream with y'all, because we're trying something new. We're trying something to move forward. What's wrong, Plants, my guy? What's the vibe? But yeah, no. I also got myself here what I think other people would call an abomination. So, but what I would call probably really good. But I haven't tried it yet. I have a quote-unquote pizza, and the reason that I have a quote-unquote pizza is one of the things of the food issues that I have about getting good sleep. Oh yeah. If everything's good, something is wrong. Yeah, exactly, Prada. That's things I feel it's like, everything's so great in the world, and then it's like, wait a minute, this is too good to be true. And I'm glad everything's good with you, Loam, even if you're not 100% convinced. So anyway, food take is pizza. So before I'll tell you the weird take before I tell you the reasoning. The weird take is that I take cheese off my pizza. So before you crucify me, let me tell you the story. Know that the random's like, what? Okay, yeah, I take cheese off the pizza. Okay, so this is it. There's nothing wrong with the taste of pizza cheese. I take it off because when I eat pizza cheese, I get really sick to my stomach. And I don't mean in the sense of like, oh, you're lactose intolerant. I am very not lactose intolerant. I'm talking about it's very, very like immediate. As soon as the cheese hits my tongue, I want to throw up. So so this is what happened, right? When I was a kid, I used to love pizza. We ate it all the time. And then one day we had pizza and it made me very, very sick. Like something was wrong with that pizza. And then after that, I wrote off pizza completely. I didn't want pizza anymore. Understandably. There was probably someone probably cooked it wrong and I got ill from it. So then years went by, right? Years went by, definitely not Italy. It was like Pizza Hut or something. Welcome in. I'm talking about my atrocities that I do to pizzas. So then years go by and we're at a family friend's house and my mom forgot to mention to them that, hey, I don't eat pizza. So they order pizza and they bring it because it's like one of those things where if you have guests, you just order pizza because everyone likes pizza. And I was like, well, it's okay. I just won't eat. My mom's like, look, it's been actual years. Just give it a try. And I'm like, fine. But then can I take the cheese off? And she's like, sure, I guess. And by taking the cheese off, I was able to eat pizza again. So the long and short of it is the lack of cheese on a pizza is my compromise to getting it tricks my brain to thinking it's not pizza anymore. Because otherwise I wouldn't be able to eat pizza due to being made sick when I was a kid. I am not lactose intolerant. I drink milk all the time. I eat ice cream. I eat cheese. Everything is fine. But specifically, it's pizza cheese. It's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. It's not a physical thing. My body is fine, but when I put ketchup into problem solved. So my pizza, ideal pizza is extra sauce, very light on the cheese, but the sauce is like, and like thin crust. So I like it crunchy. I like it where like you have all those really full Italian seasonings and stuff in the sauce. It's really, really good. And you give me pizza. Okay, I removed the cheese now. Okay, so I look, I was a kid. I don't know. It was like a little weird compromise and it worked. I don't know what to tell you. But so you might be asking, it's like, well, why do you even order the cheese then if you're going to take the cheese off? And the answer is because sauce that isn't covered by cheese in the cooking process is just going to be dried up, baked into the dough sauce, and then it just like it completely changes the taste. So it becomes bitter. It's not good. So the sauce needs to be protected during the cooking process, which is why it's light on the cheese. So when you take the cheese off, and also, like, first of all, the regular sauce with the regular amount with just regular cheese and stuff, if you take the cheese off, the sauce goes with it. All right? There's really hardly any left on the pizza anymore. People don't put nearly enough sauce on the pizza than they should be. It's always it's the first thing that gets skimped on every time. You take it off and it's like there's barely any on the cheese, there's barely any on the crust, and I'm like, there wasn't barely any sauce in the first place. Y'all just wanted cheese on the damn pizza. I know. Anyway, but so know that the taste is fine, but what ends up happening is that if there's too much cheese on the pizza, I bite into it and I want to barf. It tastes absolutely fine. It tastes fine. But again, it's the same thing as the rice thing. And I've mentioned the rice thing before. For those that don't know, I have a texture issue with rice, where if the texture is too much on the rice side of things and not a variance of texture, they start moving around in my mouth. And my brain convinces me that they're maggots. Yeah, it's not a fun experience. It's not great. It's a real not great part of experience to experience. So it's like, it tastes fine, but it sucks. So in the similar case, this cheese is like a trauma, I guess? I mean, I guess? But I mean, who knows? It's just I have texture issues when it comes to this kind of stuff. So and the cheese is just I had a past experience that made me sick, and my brain was then like, okay, cool, no more pizza. And then in order to get around the pizza police that have been on guard since I was a child, I have to like, no, you don't understand. This isn't pizza. There's no cheese on it, so it doesn't count. And my brain's just like, all right, you're good. Come on through. But if there's too much cheese, they're like, wait a minute. And then they check their ID and they're like, pizza. And then I immediately want to throw up. Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, it's literally, so I'm willing to admit that my version of pizza isn't a real pizza because it has to not be a real pizza. So anyway, long story short, my mom made me some of what my version of pizza is, including some pepperonis. So I'm trying that out. I really wasn't really a pepperoni kind of guy. My brother was a pepperoni. Oh, you want to hear something extra funny with pizza? So I told you about my thing, right? Extra sauce, light on the cheese and or no cheese for my pizza. My brother, extra cheese, no sauce with pepperoni. No joke. I am not kidding. That was the order. He wanted extra cheese, no sauce with pepperoni. And I wanted extra sauce, no cheese with nothing else. Now, in his defense, his issue, we didn't learn until later, it was issues with red sauce. Red sauce caused, yeah, for a lot of people, red sauce causes like acid reflux and stuff like that. That's what he struggled through. So, white sauce is fine. White sauce is fine on pizza for him. But red sauce he doesn't like because it just makes his stomach hurt. My poor mom, right? It doesn't put cheese on their pizza, but cream. Oh, really? Interesting. So, unless a pizza place has really good crust and or sauce, a lot of times it's just a mid pizza for me. Plus, what I will also add to that, it reduces a lot of the calories of pizza, so I can eat a lot more of it, and I'm just fine. Bro, who knows? Who knows what's up with us? All I can tell you is that if it wasn't for my brother, I would be considered really picky. But yeah, so a little story time, little background of us as children. Tomato though. Oh yeah, no, I love tomato. Ketchup, marinara. However, raw, like regular tomato, I don't really like, but I don't know if that's a texture thing or a flavor thing. It's been a long time since I've done it like a regular tomato. Hey, Barbaric, welcome in. Today is Spoiler Day, where we talk about future projects, and we work on said projects on today. And the doors are open, and everyone is welcome in. But future ones, I think we're going to do some building. Not bad. If you hear me bite into something, it's in my quote-unquote pizza. That we were talking about how awful my pizza taste is. Which is, it is heinous. Don't get me wrong. I'm not illusioned to thinking, this is normal. No, it's not. This is not a normal take. Yeah. I mean, there's a tomato pie, which is essentially just a very thick layer of sauce on like crust. That's okay. It's all right. They definitely put something in their sauce that makes it taste a little different. Well, I take the cheese off, barbaric. I take the cheese off my pizza. Long and short of it, as a kid, I had a pizza that made me sick. Couldn't eat pizza anymore. Brain thinks pizza's bad. Able to get around it by taking cheese off. That's pretty much the long and short of it. No, because if you just bake open sauce directly into an oven, it makes it bitter. You need a protection. So it either needs to be baked in a particular way where it protects the sauce from just burning, essentially, or they use a very, very light layer of cheese, and then it will be fine. So my go-to for a long time was actually Domino's, because Domino's actually has really good sauce, and it would be thin crust Domino's, light on the cheese, extra sauce. That was my order. I'm sorry. I know you didn't come in for this. I know you might think less of me, but you need to know who I am. I take off the mask. It's just words that says horrible food takes. Need the pizza place I like sells six pizza that I tried every one of their pizza and just asked without meat, so I tried the burger pizza without steak. Interesting. Oh no. I mean, that was a fair reason to take off the cheese, honestly. Well, I appreciate you at least understanding where it's coming from. They water it down a bit and add a layer of cooking through the dough. Oh, got you. All right. So if you hear me munching, I'm munching on little. I don't even want to know if you would call it pizza, because it like bread with sauce. Want to discuss about socialist ideas? No, we're going to discuss idealist ideas. Because this is Idealist. Spoiler time with Idealist. Well, welcome in. Alright, so let us open up some Excel sheets here. And specifically, Project Home Base. Boo, 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 boo. So, what we have here is a lot of stuff. We have in total. Oh wait, I'm not showing nothing. Well, that was a little anticlimactic. We'll just do this. Hey, Starbeast, welcome in. This is spoiler stream. For those that may or may not know, in which we will be discussing future projects. So if you are fine with being spoiled, stick around. If not, I'll see you later. Call it tomato pizza like the Domino's place says. Yeah, I would say tomato pizza. It's tomato pizza or like some kind of form of pasta. Or like bread. Like, I'm also fine with that kind of pronunciation. I understand that it needs it needs more identification. Anyway, so how are you doing through how's Woolhaven? Ooh, Woolhaven was really good. Woolhaven was a lot of fun. You taste it's just marinara pizza with a couple of ingredients instead of them all. True. But the what makes a good pizza for me is more diverse in focus on the sauce, whereas I feel a lot of places focus more on toppings and the cheese. I think usually the sauce is an afterthought. It's just like, just put whatever on there, just slap it on there. It don't matter. You'll just cover it up anyway. But for me, it needs more attention, obviously. So that's why, in particular, what determines a good pizza or a bad pizza for me is a lot more, whatever. I also think the sauce is very important, but what are you gonna do? Can I, like, delete this? Can I, like, remove this? Can I like, what is, can I, can I do this? Oh, I could do that. Perfect. Oh, great. So here we go. This is my project home base where I've already started working on a handful of things, but let's see, commercial hub, breakdown, perfect, breakdown. So what I have planned is that all future events are going to be seasonal. So a thing of what I'm planning for is 3 months, right? And 3 months, each 3 months is, during that time, there'll be kind of an overarching theme or narrative. The eventual goal of making stuff for y'all for stream is twofold, right? The first one is the world's the stream is happening in real time, and the stream is happening in Idealist's world. Those are the big two. That means events that are happening now narratively, and they're also happening like world exactly. So events, so it's kind of like, you can kind of almost think of it like we have anime seasons, right? We have 3 months of fairly, I wouldn't say episodic, but episodic feel to them. And by doing so, it feels like that y'all have an impact on the narrative of Idealist, right? Hey, welcome into the spoiler stream. So, how can we represent this is the question of the day, right? Is how can we personify this? It's why I wanted emotes and animations to be something that is added at a particular point narratively, because what happens in the narrative affects the stream, and the stream affects the narrative. So we want interactions, we want scenes, we want to play with it in the sense that it doesn't really feel like through the traditional VTuber, I'm in the bottom right corner and then you have chat on the right and then you have gameplay in the background, etc., right? So narrative, exactly. Narrative is king in this particular case. So what's our first step with this? Well, the first update that I had on here is Season of Tinkering. So the current plan for this first update is one where we essentially add all of the things that we were going to want to add. The baselines, the ones that the scaffolding that we can build upon. So this is updating the update. This is for having the actual adding the animations. We're introducing different characters, and like, so the Season of Tinkering is like, we had like all of this. We had like all of these like different videos and introductions, but the long and short of it is the first thing that's going to happen is a new intro screen. The new intro screen is going to come with a lore video introduction of and I already have a not this one, where, there it is, like a screen write of what the video was going to end up being. Now, I've kind of gone into a different direction with it. So this was a good practice, but this is kind of the way that I've been kind of moving forward, in which I have an action, dialogue, sound effects, music effects, assets, animation, and we break it down knowing what is it that I need to make for different parts of the video. So then that way I know, then I could be like, okay, cool, I know what I need to do, I've broken it down, and we're good to go. Right? So we are going to be making the new intro, in which there is a not only an new introduction to the stream, but an introduction to the people, or the summons, being able to see like the introduction of Idealist, of the world, and doing it in a way, in a that would allow us to make this as streamlined as possible. And by that, I don't even know where I even wrote this down, because again, let's really let y'all know. Thank you for having me move my legs, by the way. Let me really break it down for you. So I have all this, right? I have all this, right? I have all these tabs here. Well, your boy also has a lore hub with all these tabs here that goes into detail with the lore. And then we have I think there might be some in Streamer Hub too, but I won't open that one because I might actually have some stuff. But point is, we have a lot in a lot of different places and a lot of different parts, right? And a lot of different tabs. So it's a bit of a woo. It's a lot. It's too scattered. It's too scattered. So I would like to be able to kind of organize everything. But the more that I think about it right now, the more I'm kind of sitting here being like, well, actually, this is the first one. This is the first one. This is the introduction. This is the one that people are going to be able to see on YouTube and be like, hey, is this even something that I would even want to watch? Because as of right now, they wouldn't be able to, right? Or not right now, but like any future videos is going to be behind people who, you know, are able to, is an incentive for people to support more. And you know, I was going back and forth on it. I really was of making that decision of doing that, because on one hand, I don't want to be like, oh, you want to know more, you have to pay me money. But then there's another me that's just like, well, it's spoiler. So what's the best way to kind of like wall this to a particular degree so people don't think it's like a normal stream? And then also, it's one of those things where which also organizes you. My life is organized chaos. Organized chaos. Just make a story novel. I've also considered, alongside finding the best way to represent this narrative. It might turn out that either novel or like a kind of comic style is the way to go about it. Like, where it's like, oh, you have like the end result on stream, but if you want, but all the like the in-between stuff is comic style. So that's something that I've also considered at a certain point. Is like, is this the best medium to then tell this story, or do I want it as like a secondary medium, and then people who are interested can then participate in that, right? Because for stream, it's about more it's about real time interaction. So a good example, let's see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find what the hell I'm talking about. Trees! Let's see here. Is there interaction, thoughts, explore, video timeline? I don't know where it is, so I'm just going to talk about it. So a good example of this is one of the interactions that I think would be really funny and really good is if we're playing a game, let's say we're collabing, right? We're collaborating on Repo, and I get the nun comes out of nowhere, you know, our ex, and then comes out of nowhere, smacks me across the face, and I die immediately. There's no further interaction for me to do inside the game, and everyone's fine. And we're just kind of there. What I want to do is then be able to have a scene where it zooms out past what you currently see in the game, and we're now out in the world of Idealist, and you're on Idealist's shoulder because you're looking through the eyes of Mama Dodo, because that's how you're able to interact and connect through this world, right? And almost like is like a very, in the softest sound that you can hear is a second setup with a different game. That's playing. And they like, it would be even funnier if it comes over on the mic a little bit. Where it's just like, it gives the impression that I'm just playing Satisfactory in the meantime. And I really like that idea of just like, oh, looks like we're dead. Hey, so what's up, guys? What's up with you? And you're just seeing Idealist in the corner of the screen, on the side, and you're just like having a conversation, be like, oh, looks like we're about to get rezzed, and then it zooms back into the TV, and then we continue to play the game. I like little stuff like that. So let's just, oh, we died. Switch's game. Oh, lost my base. Essentially. So let's just do this as far as just nothing like another tab to make it even worse. This is spoiler day. We're just gonna put spoiler day. So one of the first things that we need to figure out in order to do the things that I want to do. Oh, before I say that, I wanted to also mention another one. So one of the other things that I wanted to do, or a different scene that I thought would be fun, is when we get raided, it's something that we can turn on and off, where suddenly it like transitions to like this almost like an interrogation, and there's just like, well, look who we have here. And like you have someone who's like, looks like they're tied up, but their head is actually just Twitch chat, and it's just like, well, looks like we've been raided with. And then he looks over to the side, and there's this screen that has their name and how many people that they've raided, being like, 3 people. Well, looks like you've made a vast mistake. And then like Idealist like slams a piece of paper on the metal table, and he's just like, well, yeah, then explain this. And then it's just like a completely made up piece of, like, just like Lola, like a tweet that doesn't exist, where it's like, Lola Bunny is hot or whatever. And it's just, can you explain this then? Do we want you in our community? Like, but like what I want is to be able to have essentially what is considered a pre-rendered cutscene, but have the flexibility and it would continue to have the face tracking of the VTuber model. Like it would be able to react to it. So the head would still be taking in information, so we can riff off of it every time. It's not going to be the same every time. Because like I don't want the same response from somebody who's coming in that I know of, or somebody like the difference between a raid, for just in this small example, this is like 1,000 other examples. A small raid of a person that we don't know is going to be very different from a raid of someone we do know, or a huge raid of someone that we don't know, where it's just like, well, if it isn't Tony Stark 05 and you're, holy shit, 500 people, like that kind of thing. I want those kind of reactions where it's different. It's different. And I don't want it to just be like, I just don't want it to be like, oh, here's a pre-rendered thing that's going to be the same every time. I want us to have fun with it every time. So the first thing that we need to figure out is how to mix pre-render cutscene with an interactable input. That's one of the bigger things that I need to figure out. And my current on my plate is that feeling like that mix. And from what I'm seeing, the closest thing that I managed to get to it is, and I've been seeing other VTubers do this. We might go down this road. I'm gonna lie, we might do it. Because we have a little bit of game dev experience, but only a little bit, and not in this way. People have made this in Unreal in similar situations. They've made it in Unreal Engine. They've made this in Godot. They've made this in Unity, where the unique interactions and pre-render is in itself their own game that they live stream that is specifically made to interact in that way. So that's currently, at the very least, the Sunday chill days, which is also something. Even Blender somehow. And that's the thing as well, is us, like, as far as the right aesthetic, how we want to go about this with the world that's going to be made, we're going to be learning Blender. We are going to be learning Blender. And we're going to be doing it. Oh, right. This is the war. This is the war. Now choose. Choose between the zombie horde or the duck armada. This was an old redeem from like year 1 where it's a costume. Yeah, the zombie horde and the duck armada. Which side do you want to win? So, a good example of this, by the way, is something like this. Well, let's let it go through, and then I will, continue, and I'll take a bite off of this tomato pizza thing. Delicious. Surely they won't take me away. For the ducks. Told you. I didn't get taken away at all. Yes. Anyway. So, for instance, I want to have more stuff like that. So. The new intro. Right? New intro. Shaking your head. What? What's wrong with it? This is what I want from it. I want us. So the view is us looking at the Root TV. For those that have no idea what the frick a Root TV is, in Idealist lore, let's see if I actually can pull it up real quick. It's the old intro that I made a long time ago. Was it Twitch screens? Where was it? It was stream videos, I believe. There is an old video that has the I don't know where it is. Where would it be? It's in here somewhere. Hold on. Stick with me here. There's gonna be a little bit of a bump. I can just turn it on OBS. 1 second. 1 second. Dealers with many ideas create many things. Not many people are idealists like the game. All right, so look at this one. So all it really takes is a wait 1 second. Let's see here. Let's see if I can. There. This was my first version. This was my first version of the Root TV and the lore behind the character, right? Granted, it's not going to be this scary. It might be. It might be this scary a little bit. It's good. I really like it. I really like the way to do it. But there is the lore behind it. Basically, hold on, bring it back. There might be a bump. Yeah, see, there's a bump. By the way, in OBS, I've made it so there's still going to be these bumps, by the way. But I think I'm gonna change them slightly. So the lore of it is Idealist needed a way to interact with souls on the other side of different dimensions. He made a deal with the god of entertainment. What this deal entailed, it hasn't been revealed yet. But in doing so, he has this old TV. Yes, this is a world where gods and man have come together to fight the invaders of their world. Think, to summarize, to really boil down the theme of this narrative that I am making is dinosaurs versus eldritch horrors is a good way of putting it. Is a solid way of putting it. Many lores being linked that I can't comprehend. Exactly. That's why this is a spoiler. I've been holding back on the lore so that it's still, it was still entertaining. It's been revealed. Okay, so basically, there is a war that happened in which this world was invaded by beings outside of their dimension, causing a lot of chaos, and were so powerful that gods and man needed to join hands to defeat them. Idealist is no exception to this. Enjoy your luck. In this case, at the end, the current timeline, the present timeline, is post-war. This is it's not that the war is over. It's kind of like Cold War. Everything kind of went silent. There was the big fight at, I think I'm going to call it Big Tooth Mountain. You kind of saw it in the thing that I showed you before. It is a mountain that Idealist created when he awakened. Again, what that necessarily means, I won't necessarily go into detail right now, but he's also, one of his many nicknames is that he is the guardian of the mountain. It's why as we start making these environments and these locations, you're gonna see that he's kind of in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. He's kind of just like in a campsite for the like near a tree, and like talking to a TV that's like plugged into a root. Like, it's not like he's in a house or an apartment or in a bustling city, right? It's going to give kind of like, the way I like to put it is like Wild West. Who has been the original story? Exactly. So when I mean looking at the root TV, I mean specifically at the TV that's like plugged into the root, right? By Idealist, the character of the house. Well, here's the thing. Well, this is spoiler time, so we could talk about it. Idealist is going to start off rough. He's going to start off rough. We are going to get him to a place of understanding and comfort. That is not where he's going to start. He's not going to start off as very much put together. He is very much, you know those things where it's like you see a guy who has a completely barren room except for like a bare mattress and a television, and you're like, hey, are you okay? And they're like, no, I'm depressed. And then they get help and they surround themselves with people, and slowly the room becomes like more and more like full of stuff that represents themselves. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like that. We're gonna slowly be building this man a house, don't you worry. But it's gonna take a while to get there, because there's a whole story arc and growth and all that other stuff. Hey, okay, Ludo, you have a good one. Thank you for stopping by. Don't worry, this particular episode is going to be out on YouTube for the regular VODs. It's the future ones that are probably going to be only on Fourthwall, I think. I think that's going to be the difference there. Anyway, I haven't fully decided yet. Point is, so we're going to view looking at the root TV, and we are going to, the TV will show like the upcoming event. This is like just chilling, like this is Sunday chill day, games that we play, like collabs, like, you know, whatever. It'll show that. But what another reason that I like this is I want to give y'all the ability to change the channel. So I want to make it feel like it's like, oh, okay, I could change the channel. And when you change the channel, it switches to different things that we've made. So a good example is Start a War. I want the Start a War thing to be kind of removed in the general kind of interaction, and instead, in the beginning, it's a channel you can turn to then be able to vote and then fight and then etc. Where it's, and then, you know, we can use it that way, and then other kind of interactions in similar nature we can do. Then we can add like our own like made up commercials. We could also little snippets of VODs. Like we can really have fun with it. But we give the controller to y'all to be able to decide where we go and where we don't, right? While all that is happening, there will be like noises / shadows of stuff happening outside of the camera. So a good example of this is during the this is Lore Hub, right? Okay. During the season of tinkering, there's gonna be, let's see here, it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The original plan, I'm still not sure if we're gonna stick with it. The original plan is that there'll be like 5 small videos, one bigger one. Well, scratch that. Probably 3 small videos and then 2 bigger ones. I want the start of a season to have like a bigger impact kind of vibe to it, and the end of a season to have a bigger impact, and then the videos in between are more or less like kind of explaining what's going on. So in this case, in like if we see here, the first video is showing that something like something happened to the TV. Something happened to the TV. As far as specifically what it is, originally it was going to be there's a small little bunny creature that seems like an abomination that can teleport, chewed through some wires in the back. Idealist scanned it, fixes it, and then while he's already fixing everything else, he's going to go ahead and add the stuff that he hasn't been able to do it. Something happened to the TV coming in 2026, right? I think that's now transitioned to the introduction is instead going to be almost like a homemade narrative, like on the TV, of like the world that they live in, and then partway through the explanation, one of the summons comes up from behind the TV and knocks it over accidentally, and then we see that the summons were watching them, so they knew what the hell was going on. Enjoy cuddling, right? So that, you know, point is the TV gets broken and then kind of fixed, realize that there's so much stuff to work on, so now we're going into the season of tinkering. That's essentially the long and short of it. Is that what the narrative we're going to stick with? I'm not 100% sure. To me, that doesn't feel as engaging when shortened to that extent. I know we could probably make it engaging, but the narrative is... what's a good way of putting this? We need to make sure that the foundations are good. including the narrative. If the narrative itself doesn't sound interesting, no matter how much stressing we're going to put it probably won't be. Or at very least, it will be an uphill battle, and we don't want that. So, but after we're starting, we make that starting video. Then we have a kind of like appearance update, and then song update, and then merch update, the commercial update, and then spirit reveal. The spirit reveal, which is the animation, by the way. Go ahead and listen to other people's lore, like Community. Exactly. I think I at least hope so. I at least hope it's fun. So, for example, the first video here, we're going to be learning about. We're going to introduce Sylvester, right? Sylvester, for those that don't know, is a Hydra cat. So the beginning of the tinkering is a proper introduction for not all the main characters, but at the very least, a significant portion of the core characters of the narrative and the individuals that you'll be seeing interact with stream to a certain degree, one way or another. So, as you all know of Mama Dodo, right? Mama Dodo is only the most recent addition to, like, the inner circle that is Idealist's main summons. Hydra Cat, Sylvester the Hydra Cat, is it's not the first one, but it's one of the earlier ones, in which they are a cub. They go by they, them, because they're plural, and they are a litter of saber-tooth tiger cubs, and they wanted to be together forever. So he gave them a single body with multiple heads, where they all could be individuals, but they could all be together forever. There is more to them, even so much so that I'm not going to even talk about it now, even though this is a spoiler stream, because I want those in particular. We could work on those later, but for now, know that it's a cat, right? It's essentially a cat with a bunch of heads. And so we introduce them throughout the process. Oh, I skipped an important part. While Idealist is going to be fixing up this TV, the intro screen is going to have this TV slowly be repaired over time. As we progress through different narratives here, during our progress of actually making the videos and making the interactions and stuff like that we want to make, we will slowly make these a little more repaired over a period of time. And then about halfway, we introduce a small video introducing Sylvester. And then once we get to here, suddenly one of the things that you'll see in the background, or hear in the background, is Sylvester running around. You now know who it is that's interacting in the background, because you've been introduced to that character. And then we get an appearance update, aka I think the appearance update is the screen is cracked. And I was thinking during this time, by the way, too, with the screen being cracked, to introduce a cracked screen effect on the video during those periods of time. I haven't 100% agreed on it, but that's something. Then for the second one, we introduce the Queen. We introduce Queen. Why Queen? I don't know. It just kind of turned out that way. Even though Queen isn't necessarily part of the core group. Don't get me wrong, she's important and people love her. But she, in my opinion, she's the best way to introduce the song update for me. So this is the one we introduce a radio to the TV, where now you have the music coming in through what sounds like a radio, and or the music that we make on stream will be playing through that as well. Then we will do a scanner, and the scanner is kind of like a photocopier. It's ways to get images to and from y'all through the TV. Then, as far as who we're going to introduce to that, I still don't know. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure about this one, as far as the merch stuff. It's happened enough time now that I've given enough thought where I'm like, this one needs some work. Then we're gonna introduce Big Guy, which is Idealist's. Idealist thinks of him as a brother. Big Guy is essentially a sauropod that he grew up with in town. For those that don't know, Idealist is a the last surviving member. I wouldn't say that. He is a surviving member of a city that once was like worked alongside dinosaurs, you know. And then the war happened, and then that city got completely destroyed. And only, well, I want to say he's the last surviving member, but I do have plans that that's not 100% true. So as of right now, he is the last surviving member of that city. And one of the Big Guy is the first person the first summon that he brought back was his brother, the sauropod. So then the last one is finally introducing Mama Dodo. Oh, the particular with the Big Guy was bunny ears, and it introduces our own custom commercials that we do during ad breaks, is what I was considering. And then finally Mama Dodo with the spirit reveal update, which is a bigger video showing off like the different new animations for like following and subbing and all the other kind of stuff. That's all this basically is to lead up to adding animations to the stream, which is a lot. Which is a lot, but I believe we can do this in a way where it feels good. So, is he supposed to lead the last survivor? That was a lot. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, do I want to lie to y'all during it many, many weeks to come? Well, the idea here was that each one of these steps would take about a week. That was the idea. Even though, like, technically with all this, it would take us about, what, 6 months to do one season, when a season's supposed to take 3 months? Kind of nuts. Kind of nuts. So why are you connected to chat? That's weird. Everyone all right? Are we good? Are we dropped? Yeah. It's important. This is, well, that's what is going to make this so important, is I don't have a good frame of reference of how much effort and work it will be able to be put into this and how long that will take until I just do it. And that's where we're at. And that's what we're moving forward with, is just doing it. So we need to do an ad break. So I will see y'all in a bit for ad break. We're still going to have ad breaks for this first one, but because the next other ones are going to be sub only, we're probably not going to have ad breaks. Yeah, let's check out the screenwriting breakdown once we get back. But yeah, we'll definitely do like a storyboard kind of thing as well. I need some caffeine. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I got myself some caffeine. I'm slowly going to be eating these pepperonis. What ad did you get? Oh, F word. I have no idea what it's about. And welcome back. So, this is the plan for the season of tinkering. But you might be asking, well, what other seasons are there? There's the season of rebirth, where we're going to be adding bit badge, like badges in particular. Another song, interactions, where we now introduce the ability where summons can interact directly with stream. In particular, the one that I have in mind is the fire breathing parasaur. So for those that don't remember or don't know, how many seasons is an understatement? How long is a season? Exactly. Well, we want each season to be about 3 months, but a better determinant of what a season's length is going to look like is going to determine how long it takes us to do the first one. Because once we've done the first one, we'll have a better idea of how long it's going to take to do the others, right? What matters is doing it once and then doing it better the next time, and then the better the next time, and the better the next time, and then we just move forward with that. And while I'm thinking about it, I did want to also mention another kind of interaction that I want to be able to do with y'all during stream to kind of reinforce this particular aspect, right? What we need to figure out. Or no, what? What did we? Yeah, spoiler day. View. What we need to figure out how to pre-render cutscenes with interactive equipment. I thought we had a thing. Where's our thing with? I already lost it. That is actually crazy. I was gonna point out to like the two things that we listed previously. We need to be able to. It's like we want to be able to be in what feels like to be real life, and we want to be able to what feels like where is it? Is it on here? Oh, here it is. Woo! Let's bring this over here. Haha! Woohoo! So we're just gonna go ahead and move this down a little bit. Ugh. That's the one thing I don't like about Excels. As soon as you don't mention anything else, copy paste don't work. Here it is. Stream is happening in real time. Stream is happening in Idealist World. So what it is a scene where it's like, hey guys, I'm gonna be a little bit late to stream. Like I'm kind of dealing with something right now. I'll be back on an hour later or something. Like a usual kind of whatever response. Then you see the notification that I went live on normal time. And y'all are just like, wait a minute. But Idealist said he's gonna be late for an hour. What does this mean? And then you log in, you go into the Twitch, and you see that Idealist is inside like a facility, and you hear stuff happening in the background, and he was like, oh, it's like, oh, he said it was gonna be here. The stuff happening in the background, and you see him kind of like running from like hallway to hallway, and then eventually it gets to the point where, thank you for having me move my legs, appreciate it. And then he kind of looks over eventually, being like, Mama Dodo, are you live? He's like, you gotta be. I said we need to get out, and then you hear like this monstrous screaming in the background. It's like, now is not the time. And there's kind of like this back and forth. It's like, all right, fine. If you're here, if y'all are here, you might as well help me through this. And then y'all can be like to have this moment where y'all can almost like guide Mama Dodo, being like, all right, is there anyone to the left or to the right down this hallway? And then Mama, you kind of like walk because you're in the head of Mama Dodo, and you look over and you lean over to the left and right, and you vote in chat which way is safe, and you help idealists get out of there faster. I like little shit like that. Or so that's another reason where it's like I need real-time interaction. People could lie. Listen, as I said, it'll be in the hands of y'all. The growth and direction of Mama Dodo and Idealist is going to be influenced by you to a certain degree. Is it going to change the whole thing completely? Honestly, maybe. So you could try to take them down the wrong path. You could. You really could. But that's kind of your decision to make and your sin to bear. You know? But I have faith. I have faith that y'all will choose the right decision. But those are the kind of interactions that I want to talk, that I like. Where you kind of have this half pre-rendered, half interactable, where it feels like you're able to influence and you're living in it. Another one, but this one's less thought out. Same deal, except we're flying on a pterosaur in what looks like a very severed space. Like there's a lot of like tears and what looks like reality, and he's dodging like these kind of lasers, so it almost kind of feels like a roller coaster at first, and then like partway through it looks like y'all are falling, and then it turns out that one of y'all fell, or not one of y'all, but y'all had fallen through one of the portals, and you're in a different area now. There's no idealist. There's like there's grass on the ground. Nothing's really happening, and then like a kid picks up y'all, being like, "Oh, look at the pretty bird," and and then you like you have the kid bring you over to the town, and you're like, "Oh, look," but they're not able to. Well, I don't know how y'all would be able to interact with it, but y'all get to experience this like strange new area, but there's like you could almost kind of like see or hear Idealist like trying to find his way to try to find y'all again, and like little fun stuff like that would go really far. I think maybe not part of like the main story in any kind of way, but it's just kind of like a fun little occasional thing where Mama Dodo kind of cheekily turns on the connection, and y'all are able to interact and help him in different ways. Because, you know, Mama Dodo, you know, each of the summons have different personalities. She's a little rebellious. She's more like, I'm going to give you what you need, not what you want, kind of individual. Kind of Mama Dodo, you know? It's like, hey, you need help. I'm going to bring them to help, and you're going to, even though you don't want this to happen, this is what's happening. And you're going to like it. And then Sunday chill days I plan to have look different. Granted, that one will most likely, Sunday chill days will definitely be like our own, like we'll be in like one of the game engines, Unreal, etc. Because what I want is Sunday chill days to become more like join Idealist as he goes on patrol, and you'll essentially have the scene where we're riding on the back of Big Guy, the sauropod, and in the background you see the slow movement of us going around a circle around a mountain, and you know we'll have our usual stuff. We'll have our you know, we'll still talk, we'll still yap, we'll still watch videos, we'll still play stuff, etc. But like all that's happening in the background. And then as we're just talking and yapping, like having like little events going on, like as we go on patrol, we see in the distance there's this strange, like what looks like a very bad thunderstorm. And then whenever there's a flash, there's, hey agent, how you doing? Whenever there's a flash, suddenly you see like the shadow of like this giant like creature, like being out there, being like, yeah, it's one of the so-and-sos. It's like, yeah, they started showing up shortly after the war, but as long as you don't mess with them, they won't mess with you. And trust me, you don't want to mess with them. You don't want them to mess with you. Like that kind of feel. Good. Today is spoiler day. We talk about future projects, behind the scenes stuff, and if we're lucky, we'll start getting started. But today, in general, is more or less a proper introduction to what this new series that I'm going to be doing is going to look like. How many gods are there? Oh god, there's a lot. Let me give you an example of one. Yeah. A good example of one, if we go to Project Home, breakdown, emotes. Here it is. Season of Prey. Season of Prey, the third season. So the first two seasons are going to be, the first season is going to be a proper introduction. The second season is going to round out all the things that we're going to need to add. The third season is the introduction of like not the main gods, but like what these gods are going to be kind of looking like, behaving like, etc. There are a lot of gods, and there's a lot of gods that weren't originally from this plane of existence either, because essentially what ended up happening was that when the war started and these things invaded this world, it broke almost like, you could think of each dimension as like its own little bubble. It kind of broke the glass containing this bubble, and like a lot of different dimensions able to interact with each other. That's why Idealist is able to interact with y'all by utilizing the tree. So a lot of different gods came through, are enabled to make like gain a following, etc. But a lot of gods died in the war. So it's difficult to say how many there are. There are many of them, but less than you think there would be. Is kind of so for example, what was it? What was one of the good examples? It was like, do you know about the, what was it, 72 demon lords or something like that? It's the leaders of the Legion of the 72 Houses of Hell. I forget the names of them. I forget the exact naming of it all. But it's you know, Beelzebub is one of them. Like all the other different kind of like names, etc. Yeah, like 40 of them died. So things got rearranged quite a bit as far as hierarchy. So if some guides are disappeared, there could be ruins of shrines. Yes. Oh, definitely. There would definitely be ruins of shrines. There would be strange cults. So, random. A good little lore tidbit for you then, for gods in particular in this world, is originally there are two ways to kill a god. All right, there used to be one way. The first way is when there's no longer anyone who believes in them. That is one way to kill a god. The new way, or not the new way, but the way to kill it is like, these invaders are able to kill them. Like the damage that they deal is to a level that will affect gods themselves. So a good example of the potential of this, or what it kind of created, is that there are these beings that we don't know if they're gods or not. And that's kind of like a good thing in this lore as well, is that a lot of these is from the perspective of Idealist, and Idealist doesn't know everything. So a lot of it is just like, we don't know why this is the case. We don't, it's not like we're sitting here. kind of. No, I'm gonna say demigods give the impression of like children of gods, you know, half god, half human. And as far as I'm aware, I don't have any current plans for utilizing that. Hey Ra, welcome in. We're talking about how gods work in this world. But there is a strange phenomena that is created with this, is that when a god dies and yet the followers still get their prayers answered, because it created a unique situation where a god is killed but they're still believers. So what happens? That faith and power has to go somewhere. And there are beings that are almost parasitic in nature, in which take the helm of a god, but were not the original god. So a kind of one that kind of touches up on this a bit is in the season of Prey, so the 3rd season that we plan on going so far, when we introduce emotes appropriately, because the god of happiness gives it to Idealist for y'all to show your and be able to express yourselves. But the god of happiness is very twisted, in the sense of the appearance of the god of happiness in this video is a deer on 2 legs with a forced smile. And it is let's say one thing leads to another, and it ends up dying, only for more forest critters to kind of like come out of the like periphery of the firelight, and you see that the god of happiness is almost like a plague that affects all animals and people alike. And instead of it being like, oh, we're going to make sure that we're going to give you stuff so that you're happy, it's the only thing you get to feel is happiness. And it's going to introduce this idea or the possibility of like, is this the actual god of happiness, or is there something else piloting it? Is there a parasite in control of it, or did it get only partially consumed? Because we end up learning eventually down the line, the way that it functions is that or the way that the believers of the god of happiness function is everything that you feel becomes happy. So all sadness becomes happy, all anger becomes happy, like everything becomes joy and happy, etc. But it's a force, it's a transmutation, it is a transformation. It is not a natural thing. Can faith, light, source, believer souls can be brought into parasites for the reason the god is not available? I don't know. I don't think there is. Well, I know I mentioned the formation of the mountain, correct? So the formation of the mountain, and the way I said it was Idealist's ascension is what caused the mountain to form. So Idealist is going to be the first, at least, known case of a human being essentially becoming a god to an extent. And it's the story of how that's happening. Or at least reaching divinity to a particular degree. In which then it introduces a lot of questions. It's like, well, how is that even possible, right? So if you felt intense pain, it'd become intense happiness. Exactly. And Idealist knows the god of happiness, Ace, not super personally, but they fought together in the war. It's kind of one of those things where like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and Idealist really didn't like the god of happiness, because imagine like, you know, he's doing his own thing and you just see like just biomass, just sheer numbers of forced smiles and gleeful glares, in almost like a sickening level of bloodlust because it equates bloodlust equivalent to happiness, of animals and people not really, they're like shells of their old selves marching across a barren land to fight off things that are beyond their ability to possibly be able to defeat. And oh, by the way, the way that I'm doing with Star Eldritch Horrors, these things can be killed. It's just the way they are going to be designed is that they are contradictions. Is the direction that I'm heading with it. They're, surprisingly enough, after all the stuff that I've been making for this world and lore, etc., the enemies are kind of one of those things where it's like, I have a base idea and understanding how I want them to go, but they're probably the least fully thought out. What can I infer from this? Idealists dislike people being controlled? No, I think that's about right. I think Idealist prefers, hey Larian, welcome in. I'm glad you're alive. Welcome to the spoiler stream. So know that I'm going to be talking about deep lore stuff and future projects. So just a heads up. Fine, I guess caffeinated drink doesn't count as hydrate, but I'll do that too. Welcome in though. I'm glad you're alive. But the idea here is there's also the god of the intellect. Hell yeah, Larian. The god of intellect is also somebody that Idealist was on the same side on the battlefield with, where they're y'all are gonna get a bit of a kick of it because I know I did. Their followers are hyper intelligent monkeys where their brains are in a jar. I know that's Mojo Jojo coded. I don't know why they're monkeys with a brain in the jar, but they are. I don't know much beyond. By monkeys, I mean specifically chimpanzees. And they love weaponry and violence and science, and they're all about the progress, an obsession with intelligence, and the just constant improving on the intelligence, right? And the god of intelligence themselves are a giant brain in a giant like container. I think the actual thing when it moves around, the current design is a giant robot spider with a brain in the middle. I could be wrong. They're also at odds with the god of the forest, which is a giant deer with wood antlers that its call and power transforms things into its basic natural components, aka it unsmelts steel in unwires circuit boards. Like, it's like very anti-tech. Like, imagine you were about to shoot a giant deer, it screams, and then your gun becomes rocks. That's essentially what happens. And there's a whole extra thing about like the god of the forest and how Idealist was actually good friends with the only follower of the god of the forest, and that he had to bury them and then kept their mask, and then the mask is actually applied to a Megaloceros that he actually has as a summon. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Hey, why is my iron armor not iron ore? Pretty much. It turns things into basic component. It's very good. Anyway, so then we also have the god of entertainment that I mentioned, which in not so subtle ways, the god of entertainment is going to be representative of like the current state of entertainment. Like everything from the stuff on TVs to live streaming to game stuff, like it's really going to touch on that, where essentially it's a giant circus tent is the way that I have it currently. In the god, when Idealist visits the god of entertainment, we see all the different parts of the circus tent, and not all of them, but at least some of them, and we get to see just like how the rule of the god of entertainment is it's allowed as long as it's entertaining. So that means not everything is bad, but it better be entertaining if it's not. Either way, right? Steel's gotta let it come off first more efficiently, right? But yeah, no. So gods in particular are a strange phenomena where essentially before the war, it's like here. Like, there are people who believed in them, miracles can happen, like there's holy magic and stuff, but it's not like gods walked among men. It's not like they're like, oh man, I know Zeus, he's an asshole. Like, it wasn't anything like that. But then post-war, they were like, okay, we actually need to start like communicating properly, and proceeded to move forward with that. And idealists in particular is a threat to most gods, which is another reason why idealists doesn't tend to get along with a lot of gods. Is to paint this in a better picture as far as what idealists can actually do. So you all understand it's idealist a paleomancer, right? Idealist was not born a necromancer or a paleomancer for that matter. He became a paleomancer in exchange of getting strong enough to be able to fight back against the things that destroyed his city. Like, he did a full 180. He was originally a crafter. He was somebody who made weapons, armor, and stuff for adventurers. Like, that was his whole shtick. He was a crafter. And then he became a teacher eventually, because he was trying to like give back into the city. He got some pressure from his mother to like try to give back a little more, and he became a teacher and kind of really liked it and being able to help children. And then the war happened and he lost everybody essentially, and then so he made a deal with someone called the Idealist. And now we're getting to why Idealist is called Idealist. I mentioned this before, but I haven't mentioned it recently. Idealist is not his birth name. There's a reason why there's a 1 in his name. Because he is the first of his disciples. Idealist, the god, in exchange for guidance and power, you have to give your name and everything else. So in part of this, and is the source of Idealist's trauma, is he had to choose the ability to control and resurrect the extinct creatures that died, that are now fully extinct and gone due to the war, or the people that he loved. And he was forced to choose between the two. And Idealist isn't called Idealist the Necromancer for a reason. He made the decision. He made the decision, and it has haunted him ever since. Can I be too dealist? No, but what I will hint here is that there will be future people also called Idealists, but we need 3 Idealists then. So it doesn't. Okay, I'm gonna put it this way. Hopefully this won't turn around and bite me in the butt. We'll see. So we go Idealist this way, right? The second Dealist is this. The third Dealist is this. The fourth Idealist is this. 6, 7 Dealist. Yeah, honestly. I might tie you out on that. Right? So I'm not confirming that Idealist is the first one. Or, I mean, he is the first one. I'm not saying Idealist that we know is going to be the only one, because he won't be. But it's going to be a while before y'all get introduced to any of the other ones. And as far as Idealist knows, he's the only one. He's the one and only one who gave his name up. And one thing that I will say, confidently, in making these stories and making this lore, and you'll learn more about Idealist, y'all will never, and I repeat, ever get to know his birth name. You will get hints what his birth name could have been, but you will never get his birth name because it's his dead name. It is a respect to him as a character, but second, it would undercut all the things he had to go through in exchange of giving that up. Like, he would not take it well. I would also don't want to reveal it. It's a combination of stuff. It's a meta reason and an in-store reason. In narrative, those are the reason. Like meta narrative, like us being here, I don't want people to know it and then call Idealist that, because he's gonna have a very bad reaction to it being called by his old name, and that's not gonna be fun for anybody. So I don't want y'all to know for the sake of any kind of reaction from him in the first place, but also just narratively, it also is just good, right? He's solely the one who gave up his name upon the name Idealist, essentially. He is the first of he is Idealist, the first of his disciples. That is the way he introduces himself. The first of his disciples. And Idealist the God is I believe I have him being a librarian at the moment. A librarian in the I wouldn't say the scum of the earth. That's a bad way of putting it. But essentially, like, the library in the grotto is kind of the mindset with it. He's a book lover of books and just a twisted individual. Kinda, yeah, Larian, a bit. Yeah, he has glasses. The best way that I could probably paint him currently is Aizen from Bleach. Imagine Aizen as a librarian, and you're kind of getting the vibes that I'm trying to put out there for this god. Very, very just. There's no winning. So, what was I going to say? I feel like we've gone down a rabbit hole here, so I apologize if I keep losing it. But there are a lot of different gods that we're going to be interacting with. Not all. Oh, right. Before Idealist was a crafter, right? And then he took on Idealist, and when Idealist was when he took on that power, transformed his natural ability in a particular way. So essentially it's like this. Imagine a game, right? Imagine a game where you're like, cool, in exchange for changing the way your subclass works, we have now capped your subclass at the current level. That's what essentially what happened, is that it capped his crafting subclass at that level, and he went from a normal crafter to a, what was the way I put it before? I don't even know. Basically, he now can utilize non-physical things as if they were physical materials. So a good example of this is he can make an axe made out of hatred. He can make a spear made out of fear. He can make a shield out of hope. Like, he can turn metaphysical things into physical things. Because Idealists, what the first disciple of Idealist and what was imbued into him at his being which fundamentally changed how he thought and how he behaved afterward, which you will see. Like, as much as like, oh, you know, Idealist is a good person. Idealist is a complicated person. It's hard to say that he's a good person for sure. He has good aspects, but he's cruel when he needs to be. He doesn't treat people like so the thing that was imbued in him is the first law of idealism, which I don't think actually exists or is stated this way, but is one of the pillars of what makes idealism, which is everything is equal. Everything that is thought, that is feeling, that is physical, that is non-physical is worth the same. And with that in mind, there is no difference between a person and a worm and a rock. So what you end up happening is Idealist now is able to utilize materials that you wouldn't able to materialize because they don't physically exist. He makes them exist, and he also treats his weapons and summons and objects as people. But that also means he's treating people not special. If a weapon is broken, it needs to be fixed. That also applies to people. You know what I'm saying? So, like, he's willing to treat people as objects and objects as people, but not in the way of, like, the reversed. It's just everything is respected, but everything needs to be... He's like, why aren't you doing anything? Exactly. So it's things like that where we're going to see the real impact of that decision in what has changed him as a person. And... so in this case, why gods don't like him. So because he's able to do that, it's like, I was once a creature when the world was attacked, overwhelming force, giving up everything, even my name. Essentially random. He is able to manipulate faith. One of the scenes that I have in my mind is he finds a follower of a particular god trying to, I think he was doing like take a child. So Idealist has this thing not really specifically, but is really ruthless against people that mess with children. Obviously due to his, lost, being a teacher and then also losing them all in the war. He doesn't react very well. So in this one case, he finds out who their god is and sends them a bouquet of flowers and with a note. And it is made clear that the bouquet of flowers is made from the follower that tried to do something. And the god notices that the flowers are made of faith. The faith of that follower to that god. That is no longer faith anymore. It's a flower. And the note says something along the lines of, correct your followers or I'm going to plant a garden. And it's that kind of strength where he's able to essentially turn faith into something that is unpalatable to a god, so it essentially kills them. That in particular makes him very difficult to mess with. To mess with when it comes to gods, but it does that doesn't help him against the invaders. So the invaders, so we are going down the path of it's very difficult. It's nigh impossible to understand them. So, but to put it in better terms, because I always hated like, oh, you lost your mind. You it was beyond comprehension. I think it's a bit of a lazy writing. But what it is in particular, it lies in the understanding of fractals. And for those that don't know what fractals are, a good example of this are leaves. If you were to, I don't know if it is for every leaf, but for a significant portion of leaves, if you were to take a microscope and look on the edge of a leaf, the edges look like leaves. And then if you were to look at the edges of those leaves, those edges look like leaves. Fractal is a repeating pattern through space. Most, if not all of these, of the invaders play to that to a certain extent. In the example that I have, it is understanding what it is that makes them them. The parts of the brain that understand them become them. You're anything that understands what they are fundamentally ends up becoming them absolutely. So it's less to do with you lose your mind and more to do with you just become it. As soon as you understand it, you become it. You're no longer yourself, you're them. And that's part of the reason why it's so difficult to fight these things. And it also makes it impossible to make something to hurt them. Because one of the biggest flaws in Idealist's ability to do stuff is if he isn't able to understand it or comprehend it, he can't make it. He can't make something against it. So his in particular powers, especially the ones that from birth or like from the deal that he made, wasn't really very effective until his awakening, and he fully understood his powers of paleomancy. Because turns out the paleomancy powers, it's just kind of like a subsect of what he's able to do. As far as what he's fully able to do, that will be revealed over time. That's not a today discussion. So we have plans to introduce all this slowly, of course. This is, of course, a lore dump because I'm talking about something that I've been trying to drip feed, and I need to make sure I have all this kind of like under wraps if we're going to make something out of it, you know. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Nightmare. What was Nightmare? Oh, we also have Season of Self. I have a couple of seasons in mind too, later after the Season of Prey. Where the Season of Prey, by the way, is going to be the introduction of the different gods. At the moment, it's going to be God of Happiness, God of Intelligence, and God of Entertainment that are going to be introduced. What I will say, and I apologize that I'm all over the place. What I will say about Idealist's awakening, Idealist had, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Comrades. He had people that he fought alongside. After his awakening, no one wanted anything to do with him. That's what I'll say. That's why he's kind of by himself for the most part. Brotherhood, kinda think of like a small army troop. You know, like a small group, like a team. It's like just a small group of really, really just strong individuals. Before the awakening, they saw Idealist as a guy who was able to like give very good buffs. He has an army of dinosaurs. Basically, it's like he's able to craft things in unique and interesting ways, and then he also has a bunch of dinosaurs. That's pretty much all they took him for. They didn't really take him very, very seriously. Like, he's able to like do stuff, but again, he isn't able to make stuff that's really, really effective. And essentially, besides just the biomass of his summons, like and being able to amplify other people's stuff, he was more like an amplifier of what's already around him. He himself wasn't that strong. And then he awakened, and then they started taking him seriously. A platoon! Thank you. That's a good word for it. A platoon. Which is why he's pretty much on his own for the most part. Is because he feels that alienation just immediately. where he finally gained the power to do something about it, and in doing so, it cost him the people, all the people that he had left. So that's why we're getting this man a house. That's why we're gonna try to help this man. And why having Mama Dodo is such a turning point for his story. Essentially, Mama Dodo happened before the beginning of this this introduction, but the way the story's gonna move forward is that his life turned around because of Mama Dodo. Mama Dodo and y'all being introduced here is what's really gonna change him as a person. That's the goal. Is that you're kind of taking this. I guess this is a classic OC example. Classic traumatized OC. We don't know what's with OCs and making them go through trauma, but damn it be that way. But yeah, no. So I want to say that's why the next season is called Rebirth. Yeah, Season of Rebirth. Upon seeing the support he has given, decides to give his supporters a new home as the community gets to enjoy the new look on life. I don't remember how. And then Idealist, upon realizing that he has gathered unwanted attention, must seek out for allies to strengthen the avenues in which he can receive the most support from others. Then we have the season itself, which is something that's just like way down the line, where basically his soul becomes fractured from an attack, and he sees different versions of himself that he could have been, as well as the healing of the cracks that lie existing. And then there's one that's really I really do love. Also have no idea for the timeline for this one. The Season of the Train, which is a horrible name, by the way. He finds himself trapped on a train, awakened eldritch, and he and other people on the train must survive and find a way out before it's too late. I don't know what about it, but I love the video in my head. I fucking love everything about it. It's like a Infinity Train, but dark fantasy. And a little bit of omnipresent reader's viewpoint. Season of train carriage. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's pretty much... That's not everything, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Especially from now on, if you want to continue, of course, looking and watching and participating in these in the future. And as we make things, but as far as like, okay, cool, we have all this, we just pointing at a giant wall, we have all this stuff, it's just paper. Do you have a map? No. Not currently, but that's a very good point. We need physical space. We need to create a thing that's like physical and that we can look at and be like, okay, cool, this is the map, this is where everything is. Because as far as let's see, paint, let's see here, boom. Cool. All right, let's see here. So let's kind of gauge it. So here is Idealist, right? Here is the mountain. There's a city, the big city over here. The big city is over there, and the town, his old town, I believe, is like over here. That's kind of like a good example of what this is. Oh, and of course, here is the tree. The dead world tree. Okay, I should also mention about the world tree. The way the world's magic goes is, okay, first of all, I want to firstly apologize. I wasn't able to escape the desire to put a world tree in my fantasy setting. I understand that. I'm gonna put this forward in hopes that it's different enough that it's better. Okay, it's not just, hey, listen, let me get through this. Okay. The world's magic is originated from symbols transposed from the barks of world trees. Trees plural. There is a world tree for every school of magic, and get this, each one comes with a skill tree. Anyway, so there is a so the one that's near Idealist is a world tree called the Tree of Souls. It was originally the one where, like, the magic of necromancy and the magic of reincarnation, the balance between life and death, like, that's what this tree was about. And that's why it was one of the first places that was completely attacked and destroyed, because unless you take out the cycle of reincarnation, you're screwed. Like, it would just be an uphill battle. So the tree is quote unquote dead. It is pretty much dead. It is essentially dead. I'm not going to give the impression that it's not dead, but also I'm also not saying that couldn't change eventually. There's also, like, the tree of what was it? It's not clouds, because everything is TOS. It's tree of something that begins with S. So, like, there's one that has air magic, and that's like a floating tree that actually is akin to, like, being up in the clouds. There is the tree of seas that is actually in the middle of 4 different oceans that the water comes in through the roots at such speeds, and that the water that is evaporated from the leaves are like waterfalls. And then the tree of, I don't know, soil? I don't fucking know. The earth one. That one hasn't been fully understood yet, because they found it underground, and they found these tunnels that have been going around underground, and they found that the walls of these tunnels are similar to the bark of other world trees, and it has just continued on and on and on underground in so many different directions. So the earth tree is, some even argue that it's part of the crust of the planet of itself. But there's a lot of different world trees. That each one it provides a new skill tree of magic, and in order to properly transpose it originally is symbols that are naturally carved into the bark of the tree. It's like the first, like, magic spells that are then further translated to either word or written word, either spoken or written, movement, and or no, just that. This is Spoiler Stream, where we talk about future projects, deep lore, and in general, like, this is a new series that I'm trying out, where we're gonna have a day where we work on the projects that I need to work on. But today in particular is more or less a kind of like proper introduction to it, because after today, future ones are going to be sub only, as far as like an extra little perk for people to enjoy behind the scenes stuff. But don't worry, the stuff that we work on and the end result that we're going to work on are going to be for everybody. It's just the behind the scenes stuff, and this is like an extra stream for people who are able to support a little more. I'm still conflicted. I still feel bad. I still feel bad, but at the same time, I need to get it through my head that it's like, you're gonna be fine. It's fine. Clear Idealist tabs? No. All right, fine. But we're doing ad break first. We're blame Alarian. Blame Alarian. Boo him. Boo him. I'm also taking another bite. Alarian, are you still here? Because if you are, we can clear it now. He's not wrong. You know, he's not wrong, though. But then I cousin later and traded. They hated him, but he was right. All right, let's see here. Actually, let's do this. Let's add that's 2026, that's capture card, that's Excel. We'll do this one as home base. Yeah. Boop. And then we'll go ahead and do, where are you? Display capture off. Perfect. Yeah. All right, welcome back. Don't be too hard on Alarian. He's completely correct. I do need to start breaking it down. So, as to make sure I don't accidentally open something I shouldn't open up on stream, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you as I close. All right. First things first. I have... Okay, everything else is here is good. We'll do it this way. Best builds for Arknights infield. So, one tab. This is the tools tab in order for grinding. Second tab, weapon skills. 3 tab, spirit, the boys, ghost stuff. 4 tabs and a window. So that's 4 tabs and a window. Let me double check this one to make sure that we're good. Let's look here. This is me checking up a potential job thing. So 5 tabs. Everything else here. Oh, the one that I just posted. 6 tabs. Everything else I want to keep open so that those stay. That one is staying open because otherwise I'm going to have to sign in 5 different times. That's going to stay open because I need to make an announcement on the charity events happening next week. And yeah, so 6 tabs on the internet side of stuff. We can go ahead and close the 2026 window for Excel. And okay. All right. That's really it. That's all the extra stuff that I had going on. The only other thing that I have open is like both of these Excel sheets that we're going back and forth on. We have like Discord the music that's playing right now, the thing that's next week that I need up, and then the reactive so I can change it without like signing in and signing in over and over again, because it's a pain in the butt. So that I'm not doing that. Listen, the thing is to clear up the tabs, not to close them. Actually, it does say close. It's not to close the ones that I need. That sucks. It's my tendency to have too much stuff. You know what I mean? That it's meant to clear out of because I'm a sick person. But thank you for helping clear it out. Just from that alone, we closed 6 tabs in a window. So thank you. And my computer thanks you. In fact, let's see. What's my current poll right now? Look at that. Look at that clean. Look at this clean. Only 50% memory from the tabs, and then only 14% CPU. Yeah, see, we're good. We're fine. We're only using like 3.4 gigabytes of RAM for having those things up. My computer is fine for now. It's still it's still pulling that much stuff. But yeah, no. What was I gonna say? ADHD go Burt, right? Well, before I was just tuning car on one track on a racing game yesterday. That's funny. That's really funny. Hell yeah. I was pretty much anything outside of streaming. I've been playing infield. Granted, I think I'm hitting the end of it. I'm hitting the late game, and late game just doesn't hit. It doesn't pull you in nearly as much. It's literally becoming more of like I'm gonna hop on for 5 minutes, do all the things I need to do, and then leave. Hey, Foxy, how you doing? That's a hell of a spoiler, considering it happens every time. Still got a little bit left of the pizza. So, now comes, after talking about all this, these are our goals. This is it. This is the big one. All right. These right here are 2 rules that we want to mix stuff with. Oh gosh. I hope you feel better, Foxy. You got into Guild Wars 2? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So, the stream is happening in real time. And the stream is happening in Idealist World. That's what we want to represent. That's what we want to do it. So, how to mix pre-rendered cutscene with an interactable input. And what does the space look like? That is where things need to go. Right? The water is failing and my Wi-Fi is not working. It's even worse. No! No, Foxy! Well, at the very least, try to make sure you get some good water. And at least you're able to have some level of internet, or else you wouldn't be talking to me. So at least there's that. But hopefully you have power at the very least. Hopefully. I take someone suffering and I take one giant bite out of my tomato crust. Okay, so the doctors are so fucking greedy, bro. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not the doctors, it's the people who make the medicine and the people who try to insure you for the medicine. At least if you're in the US, I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. At least in my experience, the doctors aren't the greedy ones. For the most part. There are exceptions. But if you was looking at the Root TV, the TV was upcoming event, want to give you all the ability to change the channel, noise and shadow stuff happening outside the camera. Zoom in and out depending on what's happening. We're supposed to have good medicine. Yeah, I would hope so. I would also hope so. But unfortunately, hopefully things are going to get better. Shrugs, sweats, cries, falls asleep, wakes up, cries again. So as far as today, like what is our next steps? Okay, so this is what we want. This is the new intro that we want. How are we going to do it? How are we going to be able to do this? So because on this one, to give y'all kind of this is the screenwriting breakdown. All right, random, have a good one. Thanks for stopping by. We're doing game dev tomorrow. Yeah, hopefully I'll see you then. If not, I hope you have a good week. We are like, this is screenwriting where all the actions are happening on the left. We have dialogue, sound effects, music, visual effects, assets, animation, and then some additional notes and the name of the project, etc. Right. And then this is where I broke it down. It's like, okay, well, we're working on each one for a certain amount of time. This is all the different pieces that we need to work on, etc. We want to be able to do that. So I tried to make a good structure so then we can move forward with it. But your boy has learned something about himself before. I don't remember if this was before or after I made this. I like making roads too much. And let me translate that statement a little bit for you. Imagine you're trying to get somewhere. And you have a car. But you don't have like a clear way to get through. You can try to drive through the forest and the desert or whatever the like a path with your car, and it's going to be rough. Or you can make the structure to make it as easy as possible to get from point A to point B. That's what structure provides, is an ease of action. It makes it so that it's easy to go from one thing to another because you've created the path forward. We know what we need to do. We've made the road. We sit down. We know what we want to happen, what we want to say, what kind of sound effects we need. We know exactly what it is. Now we just need to drive the fucking car. Here's the thing. I think there's something wrong with my car. But instead of trying to fix the car, I'm trying to make the road better. AKA, I've done all the work to make this happen, but I still can't seem to start doing stuff. That's the issue. That was the issue at hand, right? It's okay, cool. Maybe it's because this is not easy enough of a transition for me. So let's do it again, except better. So I start remaking the road to be even smoother. And it's like, cool, you're still just making the road. You're not actually working with the car. And the car is probably just mental illness. I'm going to be real with y'all. Or some form of psychological block. But point is we want to make sure in this situation that we are not just focusing on building roads. That's kind of my goal, especially in these streams in particular, that we're doing something. We're actually driving the fucking car. We still need to make the road. Don't get me wrong. We still need a path to go from point A to point B. We need to build the structure, but it can't be the only thing we do. It's kind of like when we do game dev, which is going to be tomorrow, so you might actually see this. It's like doing game dev where instead of actually us coding, we try to make a system that makes it so it's easy for us to code. It's kind of like, or you could just code. Forehead, right? Right? So what we're doing right now is technically building the road, but we are I want us to kind of start from this new standpoint, get us to the end, especially today of all days, because today is much more of an introduction to these kinds of streams that people are going to be able to see, being like, hey, is this something that I want to devote more of my resources to see more of, or is this something that I don't want to be a part? Like, I'm good with not doing any more to not participate in this. Right? Would you rather have $1 million or dinner with Jay-Z? $1 million. I don't care about Jay-Z. I'm gonna be so real with you. I don't care. I really don't. Now, if you had another person there that I do care about, that might be more of a decision to make. I'm not against, I don't think I'm against Jay-Z. Has Jay-Z done anything bad? It's hard to tell, man. It's hard to say. As someone who doesn't pay attention to that kind of stuff, I'm usually told, like, oh yeah, we don't like this person because of this reason. I'm like, that makes sense. President Obama? Still a million? Still a million, but we're getting closer. Because at the very least, I feel like I would like to pick his brain a bit. I would like to have a good conversation with the guy. You know? I don't know if he would want to have a conversation with me. I'm a dodo on the internet. Or I'm a paleomancer on the internet. I'm a dodo and a paleomancer on the internet. And a partridge in a pear tree. Or dinner with Foxy Fox. Ooh. See, that one's tough. That one's tough. Yeah. That one's the toughest one you got so far, Foxy. I'm still gonna say $1 million. It would fix a lot of my issues right now. Like, I would, like, the person that I interact with has to provide more worth is a bad way of putting it, but is worth more to me than $1 million. And $1 million would solve a lot of my current issues. Whereas I get to, like, talk to you on anytime I stream. 500,000 with dinner with Jesus. 500. Jesus, don't get me wrong. I think we would vibe. I think we would have a good time. It would be a good time, but again, it would be kind of one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, I mean, first of all, if that's even an option, then I know Christianity's real, so that's an interesting proposal. If that is indeed possible, hold on, you're distracting me. We need to move on. Back to this. How dare you, Foxy? Also, part of the reason that we're doing sub only. If you want to distract me, you gotta pay for it. You gotta make sure you give me that money if you want to distract me while I do this. Oh, a really big thing I want to talk about with the spoiler streams. For anyone who is planning on participating in spoiler streams, no talking about spoilers outside of spoiler chats. All right, I think we respect people not wanting to be spoiled. I have a spoiler chat for members of Fourthwall in the Discord, but I think I'll also make one for, I'll also make it so that if you're subs on Twitch, you also have access to those. Ooh, like, hold on. Idealist me, the character? Or no, hold on. Idealist the character or idealist me? I don't even know what's happening. Can't spoil anything. It's true, but I'm just putting that out there right now. If you're going to be part of the spoiler conversations, don't talk about spoilers outside of spoiler dedicated areas in the Discord, because we don't want to spoil stuff that people are trying to remain not spoiled for. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. So, how are we going to do it? How are we going to make this intro? How are we going to move forward with things? Open a new Excel sheet. That's not a spoiler. That happens so often. The fact I haven't made an Excel sheet for infield is actually crazy. How are we going to do it? It's going to be a mixture. This is what I plan on so far. It's going to be, we're going to learn Blender. We are going to draw, mix. We're gonna mix 2D and 3D animation. How we're gonna do about it, I already have kind of an idea about it, but it's difficult to say. I don't think the way that I'm leaning is 3D environments and 2D characters. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. Is it Blender? But yeah, no. So 2D, 3D animation is going to be a mixture of both. Because I've looked at some other things. Things that I have looked into are the Fate Stay Night movies are amazing. They're beautiful. They're awesome. Mixture of 2D and 3D. The League of Legends show Arcane uses a mixture of 2D, 3D. Like there's so many different mixture of 2D and 3D that we need to find a good way to do it, right? Spider-Verse. Yes. Spider-Verse is another really good example of 2D and 3D mixed animations. So because we want I want a 3D space. 3D space to move camera around. We need that. We need, at the very least, the moving of the camera through 3D space. So the space itself needs to be 3D. How much is 3D and how much is 2D is going to be difficult to say. That's where we're going to kind of boil things down to. I'm thinking 3D television, and then the screen and the actual thing, like it will be probably a mix also in the commercials. Spider-Verse is such a good movie. I don't revisit recall movies a lot, but I've watched the OG movie probably 10 times. It's very, very, very well done. But I'm leaning, so a good example of this, there's one particular music video that I want to make, where it's showing off Idealist's first combination spell. For those that don't know, so I don't think it's something that I've actually talked about. So I've talked about how Idealist used to be a crafter. I've also talked about that Idealist is now a paleomancer. What I don't think I've told you is Idealist over time has found spells that mix the two. And the first level of that in-between, this unique in-between, is called Living Weapon, where he utilizes a summon as a weapon. So there's a particular scene in my head that I like the idea of, where it looks like a 3D helicoprion. For those that don't know, it's the buzzsaw shark that that comes up from the tar kind of like realm that's on the ground that he summons things from, and like kind of swims around him for a little bit, and then he grabs hold of it and it shifts in like becomes a 2D weapon. It's not 2D in the sense of like it looks like it doesn't have a third dimension, but it's much more stylized. It becomes stylized. It becomes transformed. It has like the 3D shark of the helicoprion looks almost alien, but when he puts his hands on it, it becomes a similar style to how Idealist is drawn. So it almost feels like the 2D style is what makes Idealist. Kind of. Ooh, I wonder if we can play on that a bit. I wonder if we should draw different characters in different styles. You know? That's kind of cool. Idea. Draw different characters in different styles. And anything they interact with borrows that style. I kind of like that idea. I'm gonna let that mingle a bit. I actually discovered a new song from the second movie. I really love this snippet. They show everyone under 30 minutes to find the song. I guess Who's Back by Rakim. It's one of my new favorite. Let me write that down, because I'll also listen to it. It might have been something that I was also curious about. Guess Who's Back by Rakim. Okay. Boom. Done. All right. Cool. 3D space to move the camera around. So like it's gonna give the view of the zoom in and zoom out. I want there to be feedback as far as the way that, so we need to I think it was up here, how to mix, learn Blender, learn how to mix pre-rendered cutscene with an interactable input. So like a good example, remember the Sunday thing, a Sunday chill day change where we're going to be much more on a route where we're just kind of making sure everything looks good. Like that one I plan on actually being like in a game engine. I'm fine with those kind of situations being game engines. The thing that I have hesitancy over is providing everything be part of the game engine that we make for stream, because one, that's a lot up front, and two, I don't know how well that will run on my computer on top of also running a game. You know what I mean? That feels like a lot to ask for my computer, where it's like, not only do we have this one game interaction thing that allows different scenes to happen inside what's in the stream, but also doing a game. And this seems like a lot. Animate different characters in different FPS. Like in the first movie, Miles is 12 while everyone else is 24 until Miles gets his new black suit. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. I plan on, I believe everyone is going to be 24 and then the effects are 12. I think is the way that I have it written down somewhere. Eventually, I'm gonna do the organization thing probably off stream, just because that's probably gonna be boring as hell to watch me moving information around on an Excel sheet. But who am I to say? Hey Ludo, welcome back. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do 24 FPS for everything, and then 12 FPS for effects. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, that was Fate Stay Night. Wait, no, that wasn't Fate Stay Night. That was Arcane. Arcane was 12 FPS effects and 24 FPS characters. And depending on how we go about the 3D animation and the 2D animation, we might knock it up a notch depending. So we're definitely going to utilize Blender. We're going to mix 2D and 3D animation. We're going to have a 3D space for the camera to move around. And we need to learn how to mix pre-rendered cutscenes with an interactable input. Those are really like the biggest things. This one's kind of like a sub one, where it's like, these three we need in order to move forward at all. Period. In order to do the things that I want to do, we need this. Right? The easiest answer for this one is make a game engine. We do it on the game engine, because the game engine would be able to have it directly interact with the same systems as like a VBridger and Live 2D and stuff like that, and then essentially interact with those similar to those programs, and then be able to go off of that, right? Another one that we need to also consider is voice lines in different characters. So I think I'm pretty decent with voices. Decent being okay. But there are going to be situations in which I feel like they should have a completely different voice. I haven't figured out how I want to go about doing that. Because on one hand, if I had all the money in the world, I would just hire someone else to be like, okay, cool, we're going to have to do this cutscene. If it's a pre-rendered cutscene, other people. But I'm talking about the ones where it's like present in stream. that's happening in reaction of real time. Like if it's pre-rendered, that's fine. We can get more. We can hire people to do that kind of stuff. But like for actual real time response, I don't know. I'd rather it just be me, but I don't know how to go about doing that in a way that feels good. You know, drink a coffee. I'm a new person. Hell yeah. See, I'm not a coffee drinker. I say as I take a sip from my caffeinated beverage, which is a soda, because I don't like coffee. I mean, I wish I liked coffee. I also wish I liked tea. I haven't found a good tea. Granted, I haven't tried Dragon's tea. I haven't had a tea that I've really, really liked. Tea is just kind of one of those things that I only drink it when I'm sick. When I'm sick, it hits. It's so good when I'm sick. But when I'm healthy, I'm like, yeah, this tastes like nothing water. This doesn't taste like anything. This tastes like nothing. Well, not nothing, but like it doesn't. It's bleh. But I think it's to say like I don't like tea. Period. I like coffee, but I have this tea I love so much. Oh, what is it? What is the tea? Oh. Excuse me. Sorry. As I said, today I'm not going to try to push too hard, because if I push too hard, what's going to end up happening is that I'm going to cancel tomorrow's stream, because this is a new stream. We're not used to this of 4 days in a row. Tea can either be absolute fire or just straight ass. Some tea makes me violent allergic and nearly kills me. That's crazy. That's a wild difference. St. Petersburg by Kuzma Tea. I think I already told you about it. Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. That's right. I'll probably ask you again. Just note for future reference. I probably will ask you again. And I am sorry. You should probably write down which one you're allergic to at the very least, Foxy. At the very least. In fact, let's write it down. Let's St. Petersburg by Kuzmiti. We'll see if we even get them over here. We'll see. I don't remember seeing that in the grocery store. But yeah, so this is what we need to learn. We need to learn how to learn Blender, mix 2D, 3D animation, and 3D space to move around in order for us to make this new intro, right? We also zoom in and out depending what's happening, and then in addition to this, we need to streamline new things to watch on said TV and provide enough in the beginning to not feel repetitive. I don't buy it from the grocery store, but it's in its own tea store in the mall. Got you. Then I might not be able to have access to it. I could do a Saw game and drink every tea all at once. Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea. That sounds like not a good idea. So we also need to make sure that there's something to watch on there. I would also say part of that is being able to use old stuff so we don't start over from scratch. That would be pretty big. Just trying to make it like a little, I'd say small steps at a time. We want to, we'll also do this. Keep it simple at first. We'll do this. We'll put that like here. Exclamation, there was a little asterisk. Keep it simple at first is the key here. If we're trying something new, what we've learned is that Idealist has bigger eyes than his stomach. I'm like, ooh, this looks really cool and really fun. I'm gonna put my whole butt in it. And I do for like 3 days. And then I crash and burn. And then I get overwhelmed with all the other stuff that I've already agreed to do. And I don't like, I get hyper focused on the thing that I want to do. And then I ignore, I essentially just forget all the other stuff. that I need to do. And it's a problem. I'm going to go try Red Bull and see if it's better than coffee. I mean, I wouldn't recommend switching to energy drinks on a healthy level, but you know, you do you. Next time I'm going to go to London in winter, maybe, I'm going to go to the Dragon store. I know where the campus is. Oh. I don't know the next time I'll be over there. But I think if I'm in the area, I'll give them a call. So I think you should definitely let them know that you're coming, though. Being like, hey, by the way, I'm coming over at this time. Are you going to be free? No one likes an uninvited guest. Unless you guys just know each other like that. Then you do you. But I know I would not respond well to an uninvited guest. There's a solid chance that I wouldn't even open the door. You know? Like, I'm just gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. So, sorry, I'm just eating the last of the, well, not last of the pizza, but at least the pizza part. There's still pepperonis everywhere. I'm not a pepperoni guy. I don't like pepperonis. Okay, I figured out everything by Googling once. But there's some famous that shares the same name. Really? Wait, does he not know you know where they live? Oh, technically it's like where the campus is. That's true. I guess if they told you what the school is and then you just Googled the school, you would know where it is. That's true. But I don't know if you know how big campuses can be. Campuses can be real big, and a lot of times you're gonna need a badge in order to even get close. It is. I also agree with you, Ludo. It does give a little bit of creep vibe. It does get a little creep vibe. If you didn't already know dragons so well, I would have immediately put the brakes on it. It's only romantic if both of you are in that same place in your relationship. Only then, and even then, that's pushing it. Romantic is a wrong word. Yeah, agreed. Hey, I like turtles. Welcome in. Thank you for the follow. We are going through spoilers of future stuff. Add to the dino blanket. Oh, yep, it's time. All right, let me just add it to the dino blanket. One more horseshoe crab. One more horseshoe crab. Horseshoe crab. Horseshoe crab. One more horseshoe crab. 99 horseshoe crabs on the wall. 99 number of horseshoes. Take one down, pass it around. 98 horseshoe crabs on the wall. Turtles is like, you know what? I'm taking that follow back. What? This is ridiculous. Uh-oh. What are you gonna add? What are you adding, Ludo? Baryonyx. Ah, so you already have your Spinosaurus, so you want the rest, huh? You want to get the rest of the family in there? Is that your goal? Baryonyx. Is it Baryonyx or Baryonyx? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time? How much money to change your Twitch name to Horseshoe Crab? I don't think it costs money to switch your name. I think you can just do it. I think you can just do it. Forgot why. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Listen, I trust y'all's judgment. Again, as somebody who stepped away from the dinosaur scene for a good while and then got back into it relatively recently, yo boy do be having some gaps in knowledge. I don't know. Spinosaurus. Yeah, right. But Baryonyx is like this doesn't make... I apologize if this seems a little wild. Baryonyx is to Spinosaurus as Pluto is to Goofy. Does that make any sense to anyone else but me? Oh, for me to pay me? Oh, I'm not changing this name. Ever. You can pay me $1 million. I'm not changing this name. Goofy is a fucking cow. He's not a cow. He's a dog, I think. Baryonyx is a Spinosaurus evil twin. I thought Baryonyx was like much smaller. Like Baryonyx is like half. So evil is kind of, or twin is kind of $10 billion or dead with a horseshoe crab. It can speak English. The $1 billion, 100%. Okay. All right. Stream is having a real time. Blah, blah, blah. What does the space look like? Streamline and watch new things. 3D space, move around. Reorder cutscene with interactable input and draw different characters in different styles. I like the idea of it. Okay. So, I think this is what we're going to do. Boop. I know we're making even more tabs in this. This is a similar to our game dev schedule. We have, in fact, let's look at our game dev schedule. Let's see here. Last Call Hub. What is the name of it? What did we do? So this is a let's just do schedule. Today is 09 Feb. Started the stream, the new stream. Boom. You'd pick the horseshoe crab. Imagine what the bro would say. It defines its own subspecies of the Spinosaurus family. Right. Right. Or something like this. Spinosaurus is my favorite child again. I know it's like a subsect. It's like they're related. But that's why I said it's like the Baryonyx is Pluto to Spinosaurus is Goofy. Where it's like little it's like they're related kinda, but not really. Like Goofy is a dog, but he has a dog, you know. It's like Spinosaurus, but less special, but it's also a lot smaller. Yeah. No, I got you. I think they fill similar niches, except probably they consume smaller prey. Oh no, Pluto the dog. Pluto the dog, like Pluto, isn't Pluto Goofy's dog? Isn't that like a whole thing? Because I remember there being like a thing where how does Goofy have a dog if Goofy is a dog? What's the difference between the dog on 2 legs versus 4 legs? And it's kind of like, well, that's a little weird, but like it doesn't really get fully explained. So in my brain, yeah, it's like it's kind of like they're kind of the same, but not really. Like there's differences, and there's like a big size difference too. Like the similarity and difference is a comparable to Pluto and Goofy. I don't know where my head is at, but that's where it is. I don't know why it's there, but it's there. Okay, so Feb, we started a new stream. What we did, started a new stream, introduce the lore and what we want to move forward with. Okay, and then what needs to be done is now it. Okay, I'm buying a new book tomorrow, so it would be nice if I finished the Spinosaurus one tonight. Hell yeah. Let me know how it turns out. What we need to do is start making the objects in Blender. We need to start/finalize a script for video. And what else do we need to do? We also need... I would also flip these. We're essentially doing what we did. This is Lore Hub. Of course it is. Of course I did that there and not here. It's similar to this. We're gonna do something similar to this, but funny enough, where are you? I made a Word document. It's probably in a folder called Idealist because of course there is. Where are you? Where is it? Where is it? Bro, what? Where'd it go? Okay, let's just do this. It would be script. Ooh. Oh. Why don't I not see it? Crap. Right. That's the writing cover letter. Where'd it go? I had a Word document for the new script for the beginning of this, and I was gonna say like, hey, we'll transfer this over to the Excel sheet to make sure that everything looks good to go, but I can't find the freaking thing. What the fuck? I don't understand what's going on here. My God, you expect me to read? I don't know why I'm giving off like Duke Nukem. They asked me I could read. I told them that I had sex with their dads. Let's see. No. Oh my God. Alright, can I do like this? Ooh, wait, hold on. Found it. Ooh, is that it? Yes. All right, this is what I have written down so far. I had it down in Word document to just stream of consciousness better. Don't get me wrong. I like Excel sheets for the organization, but if I'm just trying to like throw up my ideas, Excel isn't great for that. Gotta go eat. All right. Don't forget to use code on the Fortnite Battle Pass. Listen, if I manage to actually get like a dodo thing, like a mama dodo thing in Fortnite, that would be crazy. But also, I don't know if people who like Fortnite would like the things I do. I feel like we're at different ends of the internet universe here. Excel, my nemesis. Do you at least like Word? Let's see here. So let's see what we got here. Teaser at the beginning of the TV part here. Maybe not even the whole thing. This is a story about a seed who has just only started to bloom, the first of the next and the last of the prior, loved and hated by those who have power and those that don't. This is his story. I actually really liked the one that a random had going, where it was like, I don't even remember. Damn it. I use Godluck because I'm broke. If it wasn't for Excel being the primary thing that I use, I would also just use Google Docs because it'd be expensive. But with the amount that I use it, I'm like, okay, it's fine. But I should use, honestly, I should probably switch over. It's one of those things that it just pops up every once in a while, and I'm like, I should stop there. So then I convince myself, and then they make more money. Show scenes that comment to the small scenes. God of intelligence, God of happiness. Show a train scene. Yeah. Show a scene of him kicking a living weapon queen. Final scene would be one with him kneeling in front of a dealer's with two options. So which would you choose? Yeah. Final card would be Idealist signature as the title card and the date call to action thereafter. So that was like the teaser trailer of the video. Calm. Drew a cool Spinosaurus piece, but now that I'm coloring it, I don't like it anymore. Have you considered just making it black and white? Whenever I have those blocks, sometimes it took a long time for me to actually like color. I didn't use color for the longest time because I hated the way it looks because I was bad at it. So you could just do a black and white piece. You're usually very good with color, but I haven't seen you do a black and white piece. So why don't you just practice doing that? Where it's all value but no color. Black, white, grays, etc. Because like a manga style. Does it really matter? Probably doesn't matter. Yeah, and then the way that I had the new intro going, I'm not gonna have you all read any of it, all of this, or I'm gonna read through it either. Is basically almost like a black and white introduction, or maybe even like a tan, but you know, lack of color, where it talks about, you know, just kind of like almost, I won't even say children's story, but a story about synopsis about Idealist, about what happened, and then in the middle of that introduction, you realize that it's coming from the TV, and then actually I plan it for being Pumpkin, the baby ankylosaur, coming from behind it, leaning it forward, and the TV falls out of the root and hits the ground in front, and then it kind of like turns around and sees like a bunch of summons that were like watching the TV just get like frustrated and you know, eye roll, and Pumpkin gets really sad because she didn't mean to like break the TV. And then you know, Idealist picks her up, moves her out of the way, makes sure she's okay, and then tries to fix up the TV while stuff is happening in the background. And then that's when you start learning as far as the magic behind things, how he's going to go about fixing it, because this first one here didn't have any of that. It was just kind of like, I think I had the intro where it was going to be the leaving screen of the previous stream, and then that was going to be on the TV, and then Idealist goes up to like stretch and go on with their day, and then like smoke comes from the TV and he tries to like fix it, and then he uses his powers of being able to utilize like you know, immaterial things to actually fix the television. And I'm like, cool, that's all really cool and amazing, and you get to see like the magic and all that, and that's really neat. But the thing is, this is Idealist the Paleomancer, and we don't see a lick of a dinosaur anywhere, at least for the first like 5 minutes. It's kind of wild. So I'm like, okay, well, and I was wondering why it took like so long after I put all this together, again making the road kind of problem. I made all this, and I realized that I never really was like, I don't think the script was good enough. I don't think this is not good enough in the sense of like the foundation that I was building off of, I wasn't convinced anymore. So what we need to do is really make sure that the beginning of this script is, we love it. It's not perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't even to the point that we love it. Honestly, I'm immediately counteracting myself. It needs to be good enough that we're excited to make it, but we shouldn't stick with it for too long. Do you like the song Walk the Dinosaur? What is that one? I actually don't think I heard that one. Maybe I have, but what is that? So we need to finalize the script, start and finalize the script for the video, start making objects. We're gonna do start/finalize making divvying That's not how you spell divvy. Divvying. That's not how you spell it, but it's fine. It's, whatever. Divvying up the what needs to be made, and then start making objects in Blender. Put me in mood to draw dinosaurs. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Walk the dinosaur. Let me write that one down too. Listen to Walk the Dinosaur song. Okay, cool. So I have a couple things to listen to. So we started the new stream, introduced the lore and what we want to do moving forward. We want to start and finalize the script for the video. We want to start and finalize divvying up what needs to be made, and then start making objects in Blender. I think that's really the biggest thing, is like, okay, we need to make it into at the very least the environment. I know I want the TV to be 3D. I know I want the environment to be 3D, at least the mid distance and close distance to a degree of 3D. Because if it's a 3D space and we just need to move the camera around to get the gist of everything, it could be a mixture of some 2D stuff, like for instance, like in video games, for example, like the skybox is most likely 2D. It's probably not real, to at least a certain degree. Where it's like as much hate as I give Destiny, their skyboxes are immaculate. They're amazing, beautiful. So like things that are super far, we don't need to calculate that in that way. And what I want to do is I want to at least first one be made in Blender, make everything, and then have this whole scene, this beginning scene, be in Blender that we then record. As far as how we want the summons to look in Blender, if that's going to be 3D models or if that's going to be 2D, I think we're just going to have to try it out and see what happens. I will need to see, did I write down the order that I remember? That's appearance, rough draft. Here we go. I think this is it. I think it was screenwriting, make all these sections, complete the screenwriting, complete assets, complete animation, complete videos, program practice. Maybe not. Troublesome in 3. Oh, that's the trio. That's a different one. That's a different video that will be made eventually. These are all kind of like just the thoughts that I put together. That's commercial hub. That's the breakdown. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering how many ideas that I have, you ready for this? I don't think you're ready for it. These are the list of wants. Oh boy. 74. I have 74 things on this list so far. And that's not even all of them of what I want to do. A lot of them are music videos, surprisingly enough. Characters. Where are the characters gone? Process. Oh, here we go. I think this is it. Here we go. Come up with the idea, create a screenwriting video, rough audio created with timing down. That's what it was. So it's less to do with, that's different. We need, yeah, you're telling me. So not, instead of finalize what needs to be made, and then we need to start / finalize timing of the video. Right? Actually, no. No, we don't want to start the timing of the video yet. Divvying up what needs to be done. What needs to be made is start making the intro. Start making the intro scene in Blender. Because here's the thing. If we go through the whole process of making a video of it, it should be the final version of what's going to be put in front of you. Right? So, because for example, if we started the video and then we're like, actually, I kind of like this direction. I want to take this in a slightly different direction for the like what people see at the beginning of the stream. Then we're gonna have to remake the entire, not remake the whole video, but we have a lot to change with the video. So we need to start finalizing everything up what needs to be made. Start making the intro scene in Blender. Finish the intro scene before starting on the video. Right? It should be before. The thing that we're showing off as a result of, like, the video is supposed to be like almost, it's like this. It's almost like the video is the marketing, right? The video itself is the marketing. It's showing off the what, this is what y'all are going to get from now into the future, right? This is the thing. This is the interaction. This is the scene. This is the special whatever that y'all get to experience by interacting with it, right? And then the video is a, like, okay, well, what's the reason you're getting it? Why does it matter? And it's feeding it to you in a palatable, I want to say human sense, but in the sense of like narrative and curiosity and things of that nature. So we want to make sure you can't market something that's not freaking done. I mean, you can, but that's a recipe for disaster. You want to make sure that you have a product that has been properly tested and done, and you know exactly what makes it good and not good. And then when you market it, then you focus on the good while minusing what's not good about it, right? And then you cater for your community, not cater to community, but you cater to the specific piece of people that you want to reach out to, etc. So before we even make the video, we should have finished and we are done with the intro scene. And then we get into the video, right? Because then we do a rough audio with the timing down. So we're going down like animatics. For those that don't know, animatics are essentially like rough animations where instead of like smooth, where it's like you do everything frame by frame or whatever, animatics are more like more impressive slideshows, right? And I considered moving forward with this in an animatic style in the future, but depending on how this is going to turn out, we might be able to actually do a decent amount of animation. But we are going to see what is realistic with us, with our ability of skill. From what I can tell, from what the small amount of animation that I have done, I seem to be pretty decent at animating. Just from, you know, the different little costumes that we've made. Like, they've been fairly impressive for somebody with essentially zero animation background. The slime Mama Dodo was my first ever animation ever, and that turned out really well. So I think I do have a knack for animation and what looks good and what doesn't look good, what looks jarring, what doesn't look jarring, at least for now. In the beginning stages, like, again, I'll probably look back at this like 2 to 3 years from now being like, I thought it was good, that was awful, that was trash, I hate you. Comments. Rough audio created by the timing down to make sure that we've created essentially an animatic. Then we created storyboard, animatic timed with the audio in a different format, or in a video format. So we create the audio, then we make the visuals. I'm going to draw a civic down, or civic crown, and honestly plant for my OC. Hell yeah, dude, go for it. I'll create a list of what is needed to complete the video. I like the animation. Thank you. Yeah, that was my first. The TV one. That was my first one that I did that. What I planned for it was that I wanted to play different VODs on it, and it would rotate to different ones. and it give that feeling of what you're watching isn't real. It is actually the reason why, you know, the ending soon screen. The ending soon screen is the first half of what you saw. Is the kind of like living room space where you have all the things that I love on there, and then it would like glitch and transition, and then like the illusion you see past the illusion of it, right? So we'll kind of, I think you're gonna like the direction that I'm going with it, because I again like the vibe of, and I apologize if this is, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but the vibe that I'm trying to get. Thank you. That actually means a lot coming from you, Ludo. I want to combine creepy and cute. I think transposition. The word is there. I'm using the wrong word. I think cute amplifies creepy, and creepy amplifies cute. And by the extent of like the idea of a carnivorous deer, a little doe that's munching on flesh, like the things where it's like you have these things where it's like the cute amplify the creepy, but like when you go from one extreme to a different extreme, it amplifies each other. The momentum of going between the two is what really adds to the impact of that, and I'm a big fan of it. So similar to that, it's like the feeling, and you know what? Let me show you. We're gonna take a quick trip back to it. We're gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go for 1 minute. I'm gonna show you what the 1 minute rotation looked like. And this is kind of where my head was at, and kind of essentially this new one that we're making is kind of going back to this original one at its core, but in a better way. So 1 second. We're gonna go back here, and
cute boy, no, don't you dare.
It's like we're watching TV.
You tend the farms.
And normally the cell phone, you'd be able to. You
boy,
might. Hold on.
boy.
Let's test
No.
this.
No, that's you. Listen.
It doesn't show up. The cell phone usually has the chat.
All right.
That's what we had it before. And then we would have different VODs playing in the background like this. This was actually, I think, our first.
Big gift.
It's one of our first Cult of the Lamb ones. And then I'm like, hey, please don't eat the thing that's gonna kill you. And then
And now I want you to go to sleep. No,
he eats it anyway.
Cute boy, no, you put that down. Stop. No, it's gonna kill you. It's gonna kill you. No.
And then there he goes.
Damn it.
And then transitions. And then starting soon. And then it switches back
really
to a
funny.
different one. Right? And that's kind of like, hold on 1 second, there's going to be a bump. We'll also need to adjust the bumps, of course. But yeah, no, it's like it's like a minute of a little snippet of previous stuff, and then you kind of transition to this thing. But what we're going to go with this one is less of a this is an illusion and more to do with we are in a world where y'all live in a TV, essentially. Like, y'all are, this interaction and everything is through this television. You see that there's other things happening outside of it that could impact stuff inside of it, and really give you more clear of the reality of the quote-unquote reality of the situation, right? The feeling of because of the fact that, for instance, me talking about the lore and the creatures and the summons and the world, that should be something that is shown, not told. And when I tell people as far as the things that I want this channel to kind of be about and the direction that I want it to go, and then if you look at like just the way that I make my like the shorts that I've done and the things that we do, there's a separation there. It's not really showing. Like, as much as I want to make this narrative and lore and create this story, I'm not really showing it. And that's the direction that I want to go. It's like, I want to show it even through example. Is that all this is going to be about, and we're not going to play games or anything? Of course not. It's going to be pretty much the same stuff. It's the in between. It's the interaction. It's the yapping. It's the like you logging in, or not logging, but y'all joining in for Twitch chat today to me talking and Mama Dodo's PNG hopping in the bottom right corner with an Excel sheet in the background. What I want to switch that to is Idealist is there. And, you know, we can change the different costumes with Idealist, and then along with Mama Dodo, that's also there. And we have like more of like, it looks like we're at a campsite and we're talking and chilling and we're catching up, or we're in the TV in like a different section, in like a different quote unquote reality. Like things where it just adds to the immersion. I want it to feel immersive. And currently it feels like a stream. And that's okay. That's absolutely fine. People are here because they like what we're doing, but I also want to make sure that that's the direction that I want to head, is a much more immersive experience where we still get to do all the things that we've been doing. We're still making a game, we're still playing games, we still have a relaxing Sundays, we still do art, we still like do all this kind of stuff that we've been doing, but now it's in a way that makes sense. And it feels like time is moving forward. That's a good one. That's a good one. That we're going to add on to here on Spoiler Day. The stream should feel like time is moving forward. We're going to go ahead and no border, third count line. There you go. There we go. The stream should feel like time is moving forward. It should feel like things are happening. It should feel like Idealist shows up one day and there's a new Scar. It should feel like there's an event happening that wasn't really announced. That y'all are interacting with. Like, it feels like things are happening in real time, and it's not just a frozen in time character that y'all talk to. It's a growth. It's like, it's things y'all are seeing every week, right? That's what I want it to feel like. That's what I want to aim towards. And that is a lot of work. That is a lot of work, but that gives me so much room to play and make and create, and that's why one of the biggest reasons why I decided to be a VTuber is because I know it's such a good medium to create something interesting and interactive and just cool. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm not really. I'm starting to see more and more streamers do it, or maybe the algorithm is now like finally understanding what it is that I like. But yeah, it's just. I am not worried, and this is a real admittance for me. I don't think I'm afraid of failure, because failure is a part of just, we'll do better next time. It's this is meant for like, if people don't like it, it wasn't for them. It's for others that have not gotten to interact with it yet, you know? So I try to do my best to have a healthy perspective on things like that. So either A, I don't really believe it and I've been lying to myself, or I think there's a part of me that's afraid of success. of what happens if this does end up really doing more than I ever would have imagined. And that's scary. That's really scary. I'm gonna be real. And I think there's a certain level of where that mental block. Remember I talked about the car. I keep on remaking the roads, but the car won't start. I think, and that's what like in for those that weren't here, I essentially had, I'm not gonna say a mental breakdown, but I really was struggling mentally in the summer of last year, and I essentially like no longer could work on stuff. Like we were just kind of going through the motions. I wasn't even exercising. I wasn't even doing VODs. Like that's why we were 6 months behind on VODs, by the way. Is that realization of like, why is it that I now have essentially an guilty-free pass to work on things that I've always wanted to work on, and yet I still couldn't do it. And I really had to look inward and just be like, okay, I think there's some stuff that I haven't properly worked through growing up. And I started like growing and really looking inward, and it took like about 3 or so months to finally get the ball back rolling again. And especially the first month was rough. But like, that's part of the reason why we're doing something like this, is it allows me of like, okay, for 4 hours I'm gonna be working on this, and y'all are gonna be there, and I might not be as efficient as I could be, and it doesn't mean I'm not gonna work on this when I'm not streaming either. Unlike game dev, I don't touch it unless we're streaming. But this is one of those things where we're gonna come back to it. It's like, guys, this is what I've been working on. And sometimes it might be, guys, I didn't work on this at all. But I think this is good. Now we might do this for the next couple months, and I'm like, guys, this ain't working. Then we'll shift gears. But for now, like, I remember feeling fairly overwhelmed this weekend because a lot of stuff was happening around the same time. And one of the things I was recommending is like, well, why don't you cancel Monday's stream? Like, we're already doing one on top of everything else. You're doing an extra, like, you're essentially doing 33% more streaming than you were before. And a part of me was just like, no, I really want to have this stream. I really want to have this Monday stream. Because I was really excited for it. I was really, really excited to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, this is how we're going about it. This is the direction that we're going. This is like, hey, if you want to join us, by all means. And again, just reiterating, the behind the scenes stuff is the sub only stuff, but like the intro screen, the lore videos, like that kind of stuff, everyone's gonna be part of that. It's gonna be for everybody. So the end result, everyone's gonna enjoy. It's just the nitty gritty. It's the struggle. It's the feedback, immediate feedback that are right there. So like, even the spoiler stuff, it's either going to be like a special thing on YouTube, or we're not even going to do it on the YouTube thing. I don't know if we're just going to put on Fourthwall or what we're going to go about it, but the point is I hope you're, regardless of what part of the journey you want to be part of, I hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am. I think that's it. And it's okay if not, but it is the direction that I plan on going, regardless. And because in a lot of ways, this is for me. And that's not really a good way you want to go about things if you want to make a living off of it. It's like, sure, you can make a game for yourself if you want, but don't expect to make money off of it. It's kind of similar, where it's just like, there's a difference between making art for yourself and art for other people. And I haven't done nearly enough for myself yet. But who knows? Maybe enough people will identify with it. Hey, Shadow, welcome in. Pretty good. This is we're doing a spoiler stream where we talk about future plans, future projects, lore, deep lore stuff. And this is the first of the series that, you know, everyone has access to. But all the future spoiler streams in the future will be as a like incentive for additional support. Yeah, but don't you worry. The like end result will be for everybody. It's just going to be the behind the scenes stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I don't see a difference personally. Difference in what way? Oh, don't forget to stretch, by the way, and hydrate. There we go. Oh, I got old bones. By that I mean I'm in my 30s, and anyone who's above 30 is just like, shut up. It's like, you don't get to tell me about old bones, you youngin'. How dare you? But no. Okay, back to this. So we create a list of what is completed the video, as well as how many. I ain't turning to dust yet. Yet being the keyword here. It's I'm an old man, both in spirit, in making art for other money and myself, but that's just personal view. Well, I think that's where kind of the mix, where I'm still sorting out between what is real for me and what has been programmed into my brain as being raised in a hyper capitalistic society. Because I'm still trying to get into a healthy place with productivity. It turns out I'm a workaholic, by the way. Who would have fucking thought? Not me. I would have called myself lazy, but apparently that's part of workaholism. Yeah, no, the world, or learning the rules of yourself and separating yourself from what you've been taught, what is healthy, what is not healthy, that takes a while. Let's go! Damn, that's a damn long stream streak. I wonder, hold on. Let me look up something real quick. I want to see if there's any kind of interaction that I could do with StreamerBot in I'm opening up a new tab. Ooh, photo buddy, how do the tabs work on it? Let's see here. StreamerBot stream streak. Ooh, hold on. Is this something? Triggers when a user shares their watch streak. It's a trigger? Oh, that means I might be able to do stuff with you. Ooh. We could do some stuff with the watch streaks, because that's new. That's a new thing that they've been doing, right? So let's see here. If I go to action, hold on, I'll show y'all. Boop. Hello. If I go to action and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna make a new one here. We'll just name this watch streak checker. Boom. And then I do a trigger. Oh, thank you. I try. I really do. I really try. It's not to the level that I want it to be, but I need to get over that. Let's see here. Channel. Stream online, viewer account. Where would it be? Not channel reward. Charity chat, maybe? Ooh, watch streak. Oh! Oh! They have a minimum and max. Oh, I just minimized everything. Sorry. They have a minimum and maximum. Let's do here. And then here. Yeah. Yeah. Look at that. Okay, cool. So I can now put different triggers for y'all to interact with, or when y'all go like, hey, we have a 20 stream streak. I would say, what would y'all want there to be a reaction to? A part of me wants to make it TTS. Well, thank you, Lo. It means a lot. It really does. Y'all giving me the positive affirmations truly does help put wind behind my sails, as I tend to be way too hard on myself. Another part of the whole workaholism thing. So having other people help put your perspective in the right headspace is important. It really mixes well with art. When I say I really mean together. Yeah, I know. That's also like part of the reason why like I have such a mixed relationship with art, and why, I mean, I talked about it yesterday when we were doing art, but I said it's like, oh, this is awful, this is horrible, and I'm like, I'm so sorry that I'm so negative with my art. I promise that it is better than it used to be, and I will continue to get better. But I just want to be able to make what I want to make with all my heart, with nothing stopping me. That is my true heart's desire, in the frustration that made me go down the path around 2 years ago until today. Is the frustration of just being in my own way. That I just did it anyway. And the rest is history. It's great already. I get more. Get the more is good. Look at the 6 shells products because of scope creep. Exactly. It's still really cool. Thank you. That means a lot. And I hope with these new changes, it will continue to be even more impressive. And then I am going to eventually reach a point where I'm like, hey, this is actually kind of cool, and not be so hard on myself on it. But we'll see. I think this is going to be really cool. When we get to that point where we have like little interactions, little scenes that we switch in there, and we have like a way to like the face tracking thing, and we have our own little scene, like, and we really get the feel of the stream down, I think I'm gonna be really happy with it. And I hope y'all will be too. It's gonna be the same old stuff. It's just gonna have more of I guess more of me in it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, it's just every bit of it is just like, remember when we talked about the guy that has an unfurnished room with like bare mattress and a television? That's how I kind of feel like the stream is. It's better now than it used to be. Don't get me wrong. It's better now. We've put some things on the walls, but like the end of all, not the end, but in my mind, the goalpost is that I'm gonna try my best not to move the goalpost, because that's one of the thing about perfectionism and workaholism and syndrome, is moving that goalpost. It reminds me of a room that's filled. You know? Most artists aren't satisfied with their art, but I think that art has an inherent value no matter its level or quality. I apply it to any piece of art, including mine. I think so too. And honestly, it's one of the weird silver linings this whole AI art thing started, where it's like, oh, I'd rather have shitty art than AI art. And it really is just like, actually, this is a great time to get started as being an artist. Because everyone has that, not everyone, a lot of people have that mindset where it's just like, we'd rather see you be bad. Just show us bad art. And also, it's one of the few ways in which you could tell it's not an AI art, that it's bad. And I mean bad, I'm doing bad in quotations, right? I think it's like rough. Rough is a good way. It needs refinement. It is a piece of progress, right? I think we all tend to be hard on our own art, though. I think we're our own worst enemies when it comes to things. We get in our own way. We judge ourselves harshly. I think it's just a representative of how we have seen the world. Has the world have seen us? How have we been raised? How we raise ourselves? It's a whole. I think it's part of growing. Really, that's why I have one-sided beef with Banksy. Really? Wait, what did Banksy do? Oh, don't tell me he's into AI art. If there's one person I wouldn't think would be into AI art, it would be Banksy. He's all like making provocative statements. Not provocative, but like deep statements. No? Because I remember the whole like art gets bought in a auction and then gets. I hate it from the bottom of my heart. Exactly. I think it misses the point. But anyway, what we have watch streak, so I can do fun stuff with watch streaks. So keep your watch streaks up. I'm gonna see what I can potentially do with that. Is there anything that y'all want to think would be like a cool interaction with watch streaks? A part of me thinks like there would be a response from one of the summons to be like, "Oh, congratulations on the insert watch streak here," but that feels a little bleh. Part of me wants to do TTS because you can give the option to announce it, and then that actually comes with words, so it could be an announcer kind of deal. Oh, then why? Why, Ludo? Why do you have a one-sided beef with Banksy? Is it because he said Spinosaurs are stupid, and you're like, and then like you ripped your Banksy poster in half and then burned it in the backyard and being like, never again? Banksy's like, what the fuck? I just don't like Spinosaurs. Or don't tell me that he's a dinosaur denialist. Denialist? People who don't believe dinosaurs existed? Because I've met a few of those. And I've always been like, is this enough to write you off in my head? Alright, while I'm waiting for that, list what needs to be completed in the video. How many shots, less is better. So we create the story. Again, just quick run up because I took down a different road. Come up with the idea, create the stream running video, rough audio of the timing down. Then we create a storyboard / animatic, aka visuals, with timing of the audio of the video. Then create what is needed to complete the video. So like that's after the rough draft. That's what now we make the 3D assets, the visual effects, the sound, the music, etc. Then we create the assets of background. Then we start the animating process, composite and rendering, which I think is like color correcting and just putting everything together, which for me would be DaVinci Resolve. Pre-release marketing, aka putting out shorts, counting down, teasing things out, letting people know that it's coming. We release it and then we push it with more shorts in marketing and be like, hey, this thing happened, which is also why I want the videos to also have merch tied to it, but not like, please give me money, please give me money. It's more like, hey, these particular scenes that were my favorite scenes in this video, you can also buy in print or something. Like, it's gonna be like smaller kind of stuff kind of deal to it. So like that, like the cycle is with the mindset of doing what we make here is something that we're hoping that I would be able to make a living off of. So the video itself is going to be free for everybody to access and utilize. It's just any other, making sure that there's still a call to action for support at the end of that, to kind of make it so that it's like, hey, if you want to see future stuff, please go here, like that kind of deal. So those who are able and willing can and know where to go. But I don't want people to feel bad for not doing enough, because your time and attention is more than enough, which is why the whole sub thing is conflicting for me. But I know everyone has been telling me like, hey, it's okay. You're fine. But it's going to take a while to get over that. Because in the city here, he painted a lighthouse on a public wall and someone painted over it, and the Banksy piece was restored, deleting the newest art on top. and I think it sucks to consider his art better because he's famous. Yeah. That's interesting. Because you could take it both ways. Those, is the person's piece on top of his more important that his shouldn't be shown? Either way, you're prioritizing one over the other. Either the Banksy's piece is more important, so you remove the new one, or you keep the Banksy piece behind, covered, and you say that the new one is better, or is more important than Banksy's. Either way, one of them's more important than the other. But I guess it would also have to depend on what was the art on top of it. Would also kind of change the opinion on it. But I see what you mean. The idea that art has higher inherent worth because the person who drew it is famous. You'd be surprised. I think it's very interesting to explore the idea, Ludo, of how people apply worth to things as a psychological perspective. Because I think if you do that, you'll find an interesting flow. It's art on a public wall, so it's not supposed to be definitive, in my opinion. You know what? Yeah. I agree. It's balls. It was balls on the lighthouse. Honestly, that's kind of funny. Who calls AI art? Yeah. Listen, I'm on the same side as y'all on this. It's not. There. I'm having trouble finding a place for what generative AI would be. Certainly not the way it's currently being used. I think if it was not connected to the internet at all, but instead just like intranet, where it's like companies only take information based on what the company produces and then use that in order to help things, maybe. But then that's just more like AI learning than it is generative. It's a whole thing. Hey Zelda, welcome in. How are you doing? No, intranet. It's kind of like a little hub of an internet. Something that's connected to each other but not outside of it. Funnier than a simple lighthouse, in my opinion. I mean, it's definitely funnier. Whether or not how much value it added, though, to somebody, it would depend on the person who sees it, right? Kind of wild. Welcome to the spoiler stream, by the way. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. Spoiler stream is a new series in which we are sidetracked currently, but but what else is new? About future projects and or deep lore, and is something that I'm trying out on Mondays in seeing how it's going. I really love tags, makes the city brighter. Oh, like signature tags? Honestly, yeah. I never really understood the hate that they get. It's one thing if it was like on a business's wall and then they can decide what's get put on their wall kind of deal. That's a little different. But if it's like public, or it's like a broken, like it's a way to spice up a like rundown, like it's not getting fixed, might as well make the desire to make artistic expression through as a way to fix and or improve a distraught area should not be understated. You know? It only gets messy when it's like, cool, I'm tagging your front door. It's like, well, it is my door. I don't appreciate you tagging my door. So I think it's about that, but I know there's a lot of nuance to this. But it's another thing entirely when it's like, hey, you weren't doing anything with this building anyway. Why are you getting butthurt about this? Oh man. But yeah, no. So also I wrote down, it was let's move this a little bit. There we go. I found a couple of videos talking about animatics and how long it takes. So pre-production takes about 2 or 3 weeks. Animation takes close to like 3 months, and then post-production takes another like 2 weeks. So 6 months to make an animated video. Right. We're talking about specifically the different like lore videos that would go along with adding new stuff to the stream, right? So in this case, it would be the new intro screen, and eventually we'll go beyond that to adding new things to the stream like animations, etc. But there would still be a video that would be kind of tying everything together, right? I think AI can be a useful tool for some things. I don't know about AI art, but for drafting, I could see it being helpful. Main product is AI. I don't know about that. Well, I've talked about AI before. In the sense of, first, if you can't determine if what's being output is false or not, you shouldn't be using AI for it. First and foremost, because it's not perfect. It's not true. It's not always truthful. It's always confident, but it isn't always truthful. I've seen interesting ways. I do like, and I think Zelda, this is something that y'all use as well, if I remember correctly. It's the Human Barbaric. It's the one where there's a synopsis of what's happened in stream. So it looks in the stream and then creates a generative thing in the stream during the ad breaks. So it's like, during the last time when you missed it, this happened, and then this happened. And I thought that was a pretty inventive, good way of going about it. I liked that. In my opinion, AI is just helping set up a sketch or a tool, making the copying internet art. Yeah, it's more or less like, I think people are treating it like the next step of like Googling something, where Googling something and then trying to find the right thing instead of going through that whole mess. You just throw it into an AI thing and then they will do the search for you. I think that's the way people are kind of moving forward with it that I've seen. I'm not necessarily a super fan of it, but I don't even think there's a but. I'm not a super fan of it. I think generative AI has no place in the art field at all. I wanted all others so bad I could explode. Yeah, it needs to be out of art. It needs to be out of art. Because it's really good at compiling resources. For example, I use it for finding libraries that do a certain thing, but I have to actually go use a library myself. Right. Like, for a searching tool, it's not super great. At least the Google AI auto search thing. I wish it would know. First of all, there's a couple things with it. I wish it would be able to not feed on itself, aka it uses its own responses as references to kind of prove itself. That needs to go away, period. And then it needs to not be so damn confident. If it doesn't know, it needs to be able to, it can't just make shit up if it doesn't know. It needs to just say. Did I show you our horror animation? No, I don't think you did. You made a horror animation? Drop that shit. I wrote a book that I forgot the name of. Thanks because of AI. I think under capitalism, a tool that can replace humans is dangerous as fuck for the working class. Hey, congratulations on finishing the sketch, Ludo. Hell yeah. I don't think... So my counter argument to that, Ludo, is I don't think the fear of losing jobs should hinder people from trying to innovate. But I also think that science and technology will get to a point where we won't need to work. I am a firm believer of that. And we need to arrange our culture and society to be prepared for that. In its own weird way, science and technology are anti-capitalist. It makes things so much more efficient, so easier, so much so to the extent where you don't really need to do it anymore. Then how are people going to get money? And that's that's the thing. It's like, well, here's the thing. With science and technology, you don't really need it. He's like, we don't really need it. It's Google, but it knows what you mean, but it can be incorrect, so you have to go check what it says. And now how teachers are like, we don't like Wikipedia, it could be wrong. Right. I trust Wikipedia than I would any AI. Wikipedia was so good. I was so mad they were like, don't trust Wikipedia. But then I used references that Wikipedia referenced and it was perfectly fine. It drove me crazy. It drove me actually crazy. I'm like, at least they're checking. At least they're fucking checking it. Like, what? If we're going to take risks with people's livelihoods, we need to have structures and frameworks in place to mitigate that risk. Agreed. Completely agree. I don't think people should starve just for the sake of innovation. I don't think people so that's how I will rate it. It is we shouldn't worry about jobs being replaced for the sake of innovation, but people shouldn't starve for the sake of innovation. AKA, we need ways to make sure that people don't starve, even if they don't have a job, which is something that I am wholeheartedly for. Now, during capitalism, before this even the case, right? We're gonna take Tyler takes over. Capitalism will make no sense. The workers get no money by anything. Exactly. Fear of dying of starvation on the street could help technological evolution. I hope it will. No. What was it? The pyramid of needs. If you're too busy worrying about food, you'd be surprised. You're gonna be focusing on getting food. You're not gonna actually be fulfilled individual. I would probably think socialist reforms with free education, food, and transportation. Yup. Things to go the way, but I don't think it will. Right. But you know what? Yeah, high socialism becomes communitarian. Yeah, it needs to be. Yeah, let's all agree that it needs work. And the AI situation right now really sucks. And I hope it gets better. I hope we get into a place. There's enough pushback that I think it will get better. Artists aren't going to get replaced with AI, regardless of what some people say. And I'm going to continue poisoning my thumbnails. So that's still a thing I'm going to be doing until I don't even know if it's effective, but I'm going to still do it. I'm still going to poison my art. So that's all I can really do for now, at least. But yeah, no. So we have done this. These are the thoughts. That's fine. And then we have our schedule. So we start and finalize the script, divvying up what needs to be made, make the intro scene in Blender. Finish the intro scene before starting the video. Start making the intro scene. Oh, no. Wrong one. This one needs to be moved. So this one needs to go up here. Start and finalize the script of the video. Start making the intro scene in Blender. Finish the intro scene before starting the video. Start and finalize divvying up what needs to be made, and then finalize the timing of the video. And then... Oh, what also we need to do, even before this, I'm going to say, even before the script, organize all project-related works into one Excel sheet. That's my homework. That's my homework for the week, is to put they're scattered everywhere. There's like 5 different Excel sheets, multiple tabs. I need to make a new one with everything in one place. Some of them repeat the same shit, by the way. So I just need to work it, right? We can always hope, right? It's likely to happen, especially in the US. Socialist memoirs, it's just a copy and paste of communism. Yeah, it's in the horror art section. Ooh, perfect. I will check it out after stream. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Okay. I think that's it. I think think that might be it. I feel that ideas just flow and just put it wherever is closest. Exactly. But we need to make sure that it's organized. Everything is in one place. So we're not searching around for something and double downing on something and or forgetting what a previous idea that we've had that we should keep in mind. Because, you know, I'm good at that. So before we completely get off, we are going to first see if there's anyone that we want to raid. Make sure that who is available. Looks like it's Melon. Melon's going to be our lucky individual that we will raid. So I hope you all liked our spoiler day. As a reminder, this is going to go up on YouTube. This is going to be the introduction to having all that. But future videos are going to be sub only because it's going to be spoiler content. The end result of everything is going to be for everybody, don't you worry. So it's just going to be the behind the scenes stuff as an incentive for additional support. So, and if it's something that you want to look forward to, we do memberships at Fourthwall, as well as you can sub here on Twitch. And actually, subbing here on Twitch gives you discount on Fourthwall memberships too, if you want to do both. But no pressure. If money is tight and or if you don't want, that is absolutely fine. Your time and attention is more than enough for me, and know that. I really do mean that. So thank you all. I'm going to start the raid. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful evening, and stick around for the raid and or tomorrow for game dev that we will be doing. And if not, I hope you all have a wonderful week as well. All right, everyone. Let us hold on. Hold on. Let's check to make sure that there's not a commercial break or something happening. Okay, it's not. Perfect. All right. Raid Melon! Everybody get ready. I hope you have a wonderful day. Have a